How you doing, wrestling fans? And welcome to another edition of John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight podcast, the only wrestling podcast that brings you back 30 years with vintage audio, featuring some of the biggest names of that time, and the show is no exception. It's going to be a good one. The Pro Wrestling Spotlight covered all the news stories and breaking developments that happened in real time, and now we get to relive those moments and that history right here on this podcast. Today, we will review show number 256 of the Pro Wrestling Spotlight radio show, which originally aired on 1240 AM WGBB in West Babylon, New York, on November the 13th, 1994. Guests back then that we will cover on this show today include Chris Candido and Tammy Fytch. It's going to be a wild one. Plus Ron Skoler about the aftermath of that WCW AAA IWC pay-per-view. And also Dave Meltzer joins us, and we may have a surprise guest as well, which we will discuss in just a little bit. I want to thank everybody for your year-long support as we wind down 2023, all of our patrons. We're going to have one more Patreon Zoom, which will take place on Monday. That'll be the day after our patrons get this show for the general public. This show will air after that Zoom call. So if you are a patron, you would have got a notification. And if you want to become a patron before, well, anyway, it ain't going to count for this year, but if you want to become a patron, please do so. That URL, patreon.com/John Arezzi, is $5 a month. That gets you in the door. There are several levels for you to choose from. And I do want to thank everybody for their patronage in 2023. Greatly appreciated. So once again, go to patreon.com/John Arezzi and relive that history with us. And you'll have all of the archives of the Pro Wrestling Spotlight. And one thing, they're commercial free. Because if you listen to this on Spotify or Apple or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, you know that we insert commercials in there. But patrons get the commercial-free version, and you also get the podcast early. You get the original radio shows. You get the YouTube show early, and there's so much other stuff there to take a look at as we wind down to 2023. So if you haven't joined already, give it a shot. Try it for a month. That's Pro Wrestling Spotlight Patreon page. All you got to do is go to patreon.com/John Arezzi. I'm in a little screwed up mood today as we wind down. So let me bring up somebody that might be as screwed up as I am today, and that is our producer and creative director, Marsh. And there he is.
Ew.
What are you drinking?
I got some Bowman. Poured myself John Bowman.
Nice.
Straight bourbon whiskey, single
Nice.
barrel. Little call back to the old Wrestling on the Rocks. Just on the rocks.
We should actually try to do one of these totally plastered next year. Not to copy what you do with Wrestling on the Rocks, but I'd like to give it a shot and just see, or maybe I just do a vape or something like that, and I'm all screwed up and, high as a kite, and you could be drunk, and we could just have some fun and
just playing like almost a best of, or we just review the year or something.
Yeah, something wacky, and maybe we'll try to find Kelly and talk to her about her daddy issues. One of our
see how many of the old callers are on your Facebook. See how many of them we can get in.
See if we can locate the modern day George from Lindenhurst. Find him. Found out on Facebook he's getting surgery and he's having all kinds of issues. I don't know. He's got to find somebody to drive him home from the hospital when he gets his surgery. So that's George from Lindenhurst. Of course, I can't tell you who he is because I don't want him to be besieged by strangers.
Yeah.
Sounds
but
like
they can send their cards and well wishes to you at your P.O. box.
Absolutely. And I'll get them to him somehow.
Yeah.
I'll scan them and post them on his Facebook page.
Oh, yeah. That'd be great.
So as we wind down, this is our last show for this year.
Mm-hmm.
We've had enough.
Yeah.
I mean, history can wait until after the holidays, after we finish this one.
Yeah. You know how they talk about like what do they call it? The freshman, or not the freshman, senioritis, they call it, like in school, like when it's like your last year and it's the last semester and you start like really just pulling back.
Yeah.
I feel like we've checked out for the year already. Yeah. We're already gone.
It's better than the freshman 15. Did you have the freshman 15? You know what that was?
I didn't. I mean, I guess in a way, but I didn't like do schooling the way that you're supposed to or anything. So it wasn't.
Oh yeah, the freshman 15 is like, you typically on an average, the students gain 15 pounds once they go away to college in their first year because there's so much debauchery and drinking and I certainly did that. I remember that first year at college, and we'd get stoned off our asses, and then we'd go across the street from the dorm. There was a place called Capone's for a good old cheesesteak sub, and plus all the drinking. And my weight ballooned from 220 when I entered college to 266 when I got home for the summer after the first year. And I saw one of my first girlfriends at a fast food restaurant, and she just kind of looked at me like, "What the hell happened to you?" That was Karen Hennessy. Little Karen Hennessy, who I went steady with in sixth grade, and I'll never forget it because she was a cute, and she lives down here in Tennessee now. I actually got together with her about 4 or 5 years ago and had a little reunion with her, just to say hello. It was the first guy she ever kissed, and she'd come over during the summertime. This is when I was in sixth grade now. And I'm digressing, and because I'd give her an ID bracelet back then. If you gave a girl an ID bracelet, you were officially going steady. And she'd come over. She'd come over with one of her little girlfriends, and we'd sit under the cherry tree out there on my house where I lived on Long Island in West Babylon, and they'd both hold my hand. And I was like, "Why is this other girl holding my hand?" Of course, I was only in sixth grade. But now you look at it and you say, "Well, that could have been something." Because I broke up with Karen. Because I got tired of her bringing her little girlfriend around. And then I realized that I made a mistake because she was so cute. She was like a little cheerleader. And then I kept asking her out for about 5 years, and she'd tease me and say, "Meet me in the gym." I go to the gym. She'd just look at me and shake her head. No.
Why did you come here?
So she got back at me pretty good. But a wonderful, beautiful girl. But anyway, I digress. I don't even know what the hell I'm talking about anymore. But at college, that was college, the freshman 15. Yes, so that's what happened.
I put on like a 15 when I first moved to New York. It was after the college years, really, but because everything was just different and everything was accessible, and partying was different, and there was a Chinese place that was right around the corner from my house that was really cheap.
Yeah.
So get General Tso's and fried rice 4 times a week.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was it. It was like, I never forget the dorm and all my friends, and most of them I still keep in touch with, and we'd smoke like constantly in the dorm. And then it was like, I'm cooked, let's go munch out. And we'd go and eat. And we even had a gnome, like a little gnome we'd put in the middle of the floor. We named him Lloyd. So we'd all sit around, pass, doobies around or the bong. And I swear this little gnome used to get up and dance for us.
Yeah.
And one of the funniest stories was when a friend, my two of my dearest friends, they were roommates, and they were one of the other friends of ours had a parakeet and asked my buddies, Jimmy the Sea and Jules was his nickname, to watch the bird for the weekend while he went home. So my friends are, they have the bird, they let him out of the cage, they're cleaning pot, taking the seeds out of the pot. So they could roll a few doobies up, and this parakeet started eating some of them pot seeds. And within a half hour, he was walking on the table, and he just kind of keeled over and fell off the table. And and unfortunately passed away.
It's crazy, dude. I had a friend who had a little ducklings,
Uh-huh.
and they didn't know that kind of stuff either, and they were stoners, and they blew smoke at the duck's face, thinking I'll get the duck high, and the duckling just fell over, like just boom,
Boom,
dead,
done.
Yeah, I was
Those
like,
are the days. I miss those college days. I still dream of college. I still dream of the dorm. I still dream of that place.
Huh.
Those were happy days, man. In the 1975 and I graduated in 79. It was the best years of my life.
Which college?
Initially, it was Graham Junior College. It was a 2-year school, communications, radio, television, and I stayed there for 3 years. I didn't want to go home. I wanted to stay, so I stayed an extra year. Got 2 associate's degrees, and then for my final year at school, I transferred over to get a bachelor's at Emerson, which was a pretty prestigious communications school, acting, TV, radio. And I got my bachelor's there and stayed in Boston for a bit after I graduated because I just loved it, and then I moved back to New York in 1980 and tried to, work for, you're in the real world. You got to work.
Yeah. They make you do that stupid stuff.
They do.
Society.
So,
that's cool,
earning money it's like, what is life all about anyway, Marsh? What the hell? What is it?
You can't take it when you go. You don't the rat race concept of it all, dude. I've had so many existential crises when I was in New York because you just be sitting on the train, looking at everyone else, being like, none of us want to be here right now.
Right. I hated the train. When I lived in the city and I have to commute, I would drive because everybody in that freaking train was miserable. You're packed in like sardines and everyone's grumpy and miserable. And it'd take me 2.5, 3 hours to drive into the city from Long Island, but at least I could have a cigarette when I smoked. I could listen to Howard Stern on the radio on the way in. And I found it much more pleasing to be isolated in a car rather than packed in with a bunch of people that you look at them and you just like, well, they're these freaking miserable bastards.
Anything that was within a 2-hour walk, I tried to walk it.
Yeah.
Like I would leave early just because they had to avoid the train. Man, I remember I listened to a lot of audiobooks. You and I went over this one in your book. We were talking about that. I was listening to Carl Sagan's Pale Blue Dot. I would listen to it on the train.
Yeah.
I would just start going like, what's the point of it all? Like, it seemed like everything, like, I love that his perspective of it is that it's just a speck, right? Nothing matters in a sense, but because nothing matters, that makes everything so precious because there is no grand scheme of things. It is just very isolated into the individual. So for him, he found like this greater meaning in this vastness. And I'm sitting there listening to this on the train, watching everyone be miserable and nobody liking to go to their jobs. And I'm like, what is the point? And like, I was having a breakdown on the train. I had to turn it off. I never finished the book. I couldn't do it.
That was it. You had enough. They couldn't do it. Couldn't complete it. Wow. Yeah, I mean, you think about that stuff sometimes, and you will as the older you get too. So what the hell? But wrestling wise, I mean, I was talking to you before we pushed the record button about AEW, and I watched it last night because a friend of mine manages the Von Erichs. Okay, and they were the Iron Claws coming out December 22nd. And the Von Erichs, it's in Texas, it's in Dallas and Arlington there, and I'm like, all right, they're going to be on tonight. They're going to be on this week. It's like, I'm excited for him, and he worked out a pretty cool deal with Tony Khan for this week. And you turned the TV on last night and you're waiting. And then after, I think the second match, they go, let's go back to Renee. What's her name? Renee what? Paquette? Renee. Moxley's wife.
Paquette? Yeah, I think it is Paquette.
Yeah, so they go back, and there they are. They're the Von Erich boys with Kevin and his boys standing there, and Renee is like, "We're here with some of the Von Erichs." Like everybody knows where the rest of them are, right? That's the first thing she says. We're here with some of the Von Erichs.
That is awful.
I was like, uh-oh, here we go.
Why would you say that?
Yeah, and Kevin is like the spokesperson. Oh, I love AEW. I love the action. And all of a sudden, Danhausen shows up with, the freaking Orange Cassidy and whoever their tag team partner is. And Orange Cassidy says, hey, listen, I got a tag team match on what's the Friday show? Collision? Not Collision, but the other one. Rampage. I got a tag team match, and I need a couple partners for Friday. And would you like to be my partners? And then one of the Von Erich boys is like, yeah, we got your back. And then the other one, Danhausen, is like, you're betraying us? And then fucking, what's his name? Cassidy. I always call him Pockets because that's what Cornette calls him.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, it's Texas. And that's the segment. And at the end of the segment, if you have it on DVR or whatever, Kevin says something to the boys, and the last thing you hear is like, "You got a problem with that?" And I'm like, "What happened?" And then they cut to the ring. So I guess the Von Erichs are going to be on Rampage. My friend sent me a screenshot of a flying elbow off one of the top ropes there. So I guess they'll be on. But what a misuse of this family. From the opening line, it's like we're hearing some of the Von Erichs. But the rest of them are not around. We all know that.
Right? Like, that's just disgusting to start it. Because first off, by saying some of the Von Erichs are saying, it's not all of them. I don't know which ones we have. There's more around, I think. It's like, no. No,
I would have said, we are here right now. It's such an honor. And I would have done it from in the ring with Tony Schiavone or somebody. We are here with one of the most historic families in the history of professional wrestling. Let's welcome back to Texas Kevin Von Erich and his son and his boys.
Yeah.
And the way
and even name the boys, like, it's Marshall and what's his other name?
Marshall. Yeah, and I forgot the other dude's name.
I feel bad because Marshall.
I felt horrible, and I'm like, because I know for weeks this was Ross and Marshall, right? And I knew for weeks that this was going to happen this week. And the film, The Iron Claw, they ran advertising. I saw 2 or 3 spots on the show, but I'm like, how do you botch something like this?
It's not that hard to introduce the 3 people who are standing in front of you.
Yeah, and it's
when one of them's an icon.
It's crickets anyway, because they're not in the ring. They're not being introduced. They're not walking down the ramp or down the aisle. They're backstage with Renee. So how is the freaking crowd going to pop anyway?
Yeah. And to make your announcer sound like they're not quite sure who this is. Like saying the words, some of the Von Erichs. That sounds like I don't know who I'm talking to.
What is going on?
That is so phoned in.
It's worse than phoned in. It's almost like it was an intentional, like, screw these guys. Why did you even have them there for?
Why'd you bring him in on Dallas if you're going to have him backstage and then put him on Rampage where it's the lowest viewership you have across the board?
Yeah. So my friend is texting me a few things today. I said, listen, we'll get together. I look forward to catching up with you next week, because then I'll just say, boy, man, that was I got to tell him the truth. It was fucking horrible.
It was awful. As a promoter, would you spend money to bring in these guys and then say those words?
And they got pretty healthy paydays.
Yeah.
Just really good paydays for what?
The thing that's funny too is I was going to send you the screenshot that I took, and I forgot to, because I thought we were going to talk about it anyways. When it said that they were coming on to Texas, I saw a few people retweeting it saying, "Oh my God, the Von Erichs are all elite.
Yep.
Oh, they're coming. Oh, we're going to get them."
Yes. And the outcry on social media, on Facebook pages, on Twitter, it's getting universally and rightfully so trashed. And it ain't because of the Von Erichs. Mm-hmm. And those guys are good workers. They're great. I look forward to seeing the match. And hopefully, I don't know if they went over or if they didn't go over. I don't know. But it was horrible. I mean, I feel bad Kevin we've had on this program, and what a legacy he has in the family and all the tragedy and everything like that. And him trying to help out his boys, and my friend trying to get them a gig. I know that they did something at the Performance Center as well. They were down meeting with them, and nothing transpired from there. But this AEW situation is, you felt that if it was done the right way, you could actually create something really cool with the father in the corner, the angles, some of the storylines you could do that would be kind of compelling because of the history, and especially that this major motion picture is coming out, and that on everybody's lips that go to see this movie, they're going to be talking about the Von Erichs.
Yes. It's insane. That is so crazy.
Yeah. So anyway, that was so like, what a waste. That's it. Well, it wasn't a waste 30 or 29 years ago. We had a pretty exciting show. I mean, this one was kind of interesting. Not only with Skoler and the pay-per-view, all the nice things that we get into when we review it, but the Chris and Tammy thing is also was fascinating to me, very, very much so, just because of where they were in their lives at that time. So we have a lot of good, cool stuff, and then Skoler. After Skoler and Tammy and Chris, then we got Meltzer coming on. And then it looks like we're going to have somebody who's been wanting to criticize this show for 29 years. And we'll give him the opportunity here on this show later today. We'll bring Roy.
You're all about,
Lucier
John.
on.
You're all about giving people the platform to complain.
I did it every week. It was almost the same thing with people talking shit about what was going on in the wrestling business.
Yeah,
but that's what I did. It was very cool.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be fun. I would encourage people to get the Patreon for this one. It was just too much for me to clip everything that I thought was good. Like Tammy and Chris, I didn't get a single clip with them talking to the callers, but they took a few calls, and I thought they handled them great. And I thought it was pretty funny. One of them complaining about how they basically are being heels, and Tammy being like, "That's the point." Like,
that's the point.
It was great.
Right.
Yeah. So the full episode on Patreon.
Yes.
Price of a cup of coffee.
That's right. Less than a cup of coffee.
Yeah, it's true.
We go to Starbucks recently, you get a grande and it's like $6.
Really?
Come on.
Yeah, I only go there when I get a gift card, and I get them every year. Someone gives me a gift card knowing, and I don't go there otherwise. So it's just weird. But we got episode 256.
Yes, episode 256. And I think we have, I say it every week, but I think I wrote it down this week. We have 7 original broadcasts after this one. 7. That's it. And we'll figure it out.
It'll be a wild ride.
It will. It will be a wild ride. Giddy up, everybody. We're ready to go.
We're doing the last 7 just roasted. You did open it talking about how AAA, the WCW show, Worlds Collide, I believe it was called, right?
When Worlds Collide, correct.
Yeah. That was the show of the year. You guys thought it was incredible. It was so good. UFC did a thing that you had not seen, but Meltzer did. So you wanted to have Meltzer on to talk about the UFC. Mm-hmm. I believe you ended up talking about other things. I don't think UFC got brought up fully.
No.
Because I think that he ended up. Yeah. He watched a different shoot style wrestling thing. And that's what he wanted to talk about. But the big news that was crazy, Randy Savage had walked away from WWF.
Oof.
And Vince had gone on air and actually announced it. And that becomes a point of topic for a lot of this show.
Yes.
It's all AAA and it's all Macho walking out.
That was a big news story. That was a huge news story of Macho walking out. And the fact that Vince announced it on air.
Yes. You and Meltzer talk about how he handled it on air. You guys talk about how long that Meltzer had been hearing rumors about it. I think when we hear the clip, it's really compelling. The fact that he just disregarded the rumors because it was just that hard to believe that Macho would ever leave them. Especially given that you guys knew that there was a tension between Savage and Hogan, supposedly.
Yep. That's right.
So that's how the show opens up. We bring on Donnie. You guys talk about Randy Savage, and that brings us right into the capsule. So I have you guys talking Savage, which leads into the capsule.
Let's do it. Big news, and we'll talk about that with Don Leibel, who's coming on the air right now with us. Our ace reporter, news capsule, anchorman, Don Leibel. Donnie.
Hey, that's a heck of an introduction. Keep going, my man.
And also a columnist, a weekly columnist for a newspaper in Utica or Herkimer.
Yeah, in that vicinity. Keep plugging along, and I'll tell you, it's been an exciting week in wrestling. A couple big stories, as we'll get to, but...
well, the Macho Man thing.
Yeah,
first.
You know, that to me is bigger than Hulk Hogan moving from WWF to WCW, and a reason being, Hogan, we kind of knew ahead of time this would happen. With Savage, it caught most everybody by surprise.
Yeah.
And I think it still has a lot of people by surprise that this was the last link to the glory days, to the man, the ambassador of the Federation that most people would associate with the organization. And for him to be allowed to go or to want to go, that's still really incredible to believe.
Very, very big story. And the thing is, Vince McMahon certainly showing some emotion when he went on the air Monday night with Monday Night Raw, because reportedly, McMahon told Macho Man earlier in the day, if he continues talking to WCW, don't bother showing up at TV. Mm-hmm. And Randy didn't show at TV, so what happened was Vince on the air, he did it in a classy way, saying that Macho Man is no longer with the WWF due to contractual difficulties. And we got a report yesterday that Randy has inked a one-year deal with WCW for in the neighborhood of $500,000.
Exactly. Now that you stole my lead story in the spotlight...
well, Don, go ahead, right ahead. And maybe some people are just tuning in right now, so go ahead and give it to them again,
Thank
buddy.
you, John, and good afternoon, everybody. Well, just as John said, it's the story that the sport still is in shock over, this moving from the World Wrestling Federation to World Championship Wrestling by Macho Man Randy Savage. Now, the surprise went public this past Monday night when WWF owner Vince McMahon announced at the beginning of the live Raw telecast that the promotion and Savage were unable to come to terms of a new contract. Now, insiders are telling us that Randy signed a one-year contract for the sum of around $500,000. He is expected to make an appearance at this Wednesday night's Clash of Champions, with his first in-ring performance coming on December 27th in Nashville, Tennessee at the Starrcade pay-per-view. Savage turns 42 this week. Well, at this week's TV tapings in Bushkill and Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, two new characters were introduced by the WWF. First, the Vampire Warrior, David Heath, who most recently has been seen as a prelim wrestler wearing a mask as the Phantom on WWF TV, was the first to come out to the cameras, followed by Man of War, who is P.J. Walker, who also, up until this taping, was no higher on the card than the opening match. Now, Vampire Warrior and Luna Vachon were married on Halloween night. Well, last Sunday, before 13,000 fans in the Los Angeles Sports Arena, Mexico's AAA promotion and IWC ran their first pay-per-view event. A bloody Perro Aguayo won his cage match with Conan in the main event, and Love Machine and Eddie Guerrero lost their hair in a heated tag match against El Hijo Santo and Octagon that saw Octagon be carted off from ringside to a waiting ambulance, and Love Machine get physical with some of the ringsiders. Well, this Wednesday's Clash of Champions 24 on WTPS will be headlined by a six-man tag involving the teams of Hulk Hogan, Sting, and Evad Sullivan versus the three Faces of Fear, Kevin Sullivan, Butcher, and the Avalanche. Also expect the Honky Tonk Man to leave the ring after his match with Johnny B. Bad with the WCW TV belt. And this coming weekend is going to be a busy one. First in Philly next weekend, we're going to see ECW. They have a stellar card set for Saturday evening that will include Shane Douglas teaming with Steve Austin, who will be managed by sensuous Sherry Martel, and the tag combo of Cactus Jack and Kevin Sullivan will be reuniting for one night. Also, in nearby Cherry Hill, New Jersey, promoter Dennis Carluzzo presents his NWA Heavyweight title tournament. The Smoky Mountain Wrestling card, one of three in the area this week, will feature Jerry Lawler, Eddie Gilbert, Jim Cornette and the Gangsters, plus the Rock and Roll Express. Finally, this week in wrestling history, 19 years ago this coming Tuesday, it was on November 8th, 1975, in St. Paul, Minnesota, Nick Bockwinkel dethroned Vern Gagne to win the first of 3 American Wrestling Association heavyweight titles. For the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, I'm Don Libel reporting. Capsule time, 112.
A lot of news. That Macho story was a huge one, man.
Yeah, and the fact that you guys really like the way that Vince talked about it on air. I thought it was cool. He mentioned the vampire warrior David Heath and getting married to Luna on Halloween.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. That was a match made in hell.
Yeah. Yeah, that was crazy. Did you see the Luna Dark Side of the Ring?
Yes, I did.
You did a really good job in that one.
Oh, yeah.
Interview.
Yeah, she was something special. She really was.
Yeah. Yeah, and you guys talk about her a little bit later on too, because the caller calls in asking about her. So, but yeah, Savage walking out, big news. Even afterwards, you guys were talking about how crazy it looks, how WCW looks right now. They're like, look at, they've got Savage, Hogan, Mean Gene, Heenan.
Yeah, Brutai, Brother Brutai.
Yeah,
all of them. Yeah, it was like, what the hell? Didn't we just watch all this shit in the WWF for fucking 7 years, whatever it's been, and now we got to see it again in reruns, like in real time seemed like reruns on WCW. It's like, come on.
It was nuts. I remember feeling that way as a kid. I wasn't smart enough to know anything, but I remember one of the reasons I didn't watch WCW is because it was old WWF.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, why would I watch that?
That was it was before the big boom, of course, but it was just kind of like, why?
Yeah.
All the great talent that had on the roster, and you have all of these clowns running around, making big freaking money. And well, it's part of history now, isn't it?
It is. And when you think about it too, the big boom, I mean, there's always people, we can dissect it all we want, right? But I just look at it from the perspective of when I was watching it. I wasn't smart enough to know any better. I started watching WCW when I thought WWF was on WCW. Like with the Outsiders, it was, oh my God, they're invading.
Yeah, they're invading, right? It was like for a youngster like yourself getting involved, and a lot of people thought that's what's happening. They couldn't tell one thing from the next, and what's going on here?
Yeah, and as that became less and less apparent, and it became more and more like, oh, it's just the old guys are going there kind of a deal, it tapered off pretty quick for me. I mean, I know that it was like, what a good 4-year run that they had, 96 to 2000, but like by the time 97, 98 rolled around, I was already kind of checked out. Like,
I mean, it really started when Luger showed up at that first Nitro in the Mall of America, when Lex Luger showed up out of nowhere and didn't even tell Vince or anyone else that he was like jumping ship and showing up on their TV. That was like, all right, this looks like it could get interesting.
Yeah, something's happening. Yeah. And it's really cool too. You guys even referred about how amazing the AAA show was, how great ECW was, and you said it's crazy that right now the dinosaurs in wrestling are the 2 biggest promotions, the WCW and WWF. They can't get out of their own way at this point.
So cyclical, all this stuff, because now you have WWE hot as a pistol. I mean, they're hot right now.
Yeah.
I mean, you put CM Punk into the mix and the potential storylines with him. I know we're digressing here, but with Cody, I mean, something cool could really. There's so many ways they could go with this thing. So that's why I'm like, I'm watching. I'm actually watching it.
Yes, and that stuff with Seth feels real.
It does.
There's something about it that, like, as much as first off, I love getting worked. I love it.
Me too.
And if this is all scripted top to bottom and they've been thinking about it for a while, then you're working me like crazy.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, I'm like, there's a real edge here.
And you got Randy Orton now, who was always great. Now he's back in the picture, looking great.
Amazing. Yeah, I hate him.
Yeah. Dirty Dominic. I mean, obviously, I mean, it's really compelling to watch. I'm really kind of excited that it looks like they're going to have another resurgence, and 2024 could be just a phenomenal year for WWE.
Yep. Yeah, and then you have the smaller shows doing what they're doing with the other talent. It does feel a little cyclical in a few ways, and you get into that a little bit more with Meltzer, so we won't get too far ahead of it.
Cool.
But that was really neat the way you guys were talking about it, and you guys could tell ECW and AAA, there was a fire beneath them.
Yeah,
that could not be ignored.
That's right.
Don got a lot of cards from John Studd.
Mm-hmm.
He appreciated. And then you bring on Ron Skoler.
Now, let me tell everybody what we're doing here with this, because I know we talked about Skoler and Bischoff and Conan and, trying to get everyone's schedule, whatever. And it's not like I was like hounding everyone, but I feel like this still warrants a show. It could be a special. It could be just kind of let's take a look back at what happened. And after the first of the year, maybe that's another thing that we do is like, let's take an event and bring some people on of something that happened decades ago. So, so we haven't forgotten about that. Listening to the Skoler call in, and I'm like, well, that's not really good to bring a Bischoff on or even a Conan on or even, Skoler to talk about that. I'd rather devote a show to it, actually.
Yeah, me too. Because like you said, he didn't say anything outright that was kind of like hot, or he was still pretty vague in a lot of it. So there wasn't anything like really. Yeah.
It was just kind of nicey nice.
Yep. Yeah. So I do think it'd be better to sit them all down and just be like, hey, maybe play a couple of clips of like you guys criticizing the build.
Yeah.
A clip of some of the criticisms coming out of it, but also a clip or two of you guys talking about how great it was and how hopeful everyone was. And then, so what happened, beginning, middle, end.
So maybe what we do with Roy when he comes on is like he'll audition to be one of the hosts for that show.
Mediate.
How he does. Yeah.
Yeah. He's gonna be aha!
He's ready for this later, so that's gonna be cool. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I'm sorry, I digress as always.
No, this is it. This is Ron Skoler. This is the beginning of you guys' conversation.
Who has to be credited today with being a part of, organizing, putting together the most exciting pay-per-view wrestling event of 1994. And I'm referring to Ron Skoler, the president of International Wrestling Council, who joins us today here at the program. Ron, are you there?
Hi.
How you doing?
Okay, how you doing?
Doing very good. And I tell you, Ron, hats off to you. The show last Sunday was a spectacular event. It was the most exciting pay-per-view I saw all year long, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners feel the same way. Leaving the arena on Sunday night, this week, the repercussions, the feedback that you've gotten, and just your general feeling on how everything went this past Sunday.
Okay, well, thank you, John, first of all. I was extremely happy about it. There were a lot of things that we wanted to accomplish, and there were a lot of things that potentially could have gone wrong, but very few of them actually did go wrong. So I was very happy with it. I was very happy, above all, with the work rate that everybody put out, which is pretty normal for AAA and IWC. Everybody worked hard. I think that this was certainly the one singular event that exposed Lucha Libre to an American audience, to a large extent. And that's really what we wanted to do, because all we felt was that if people got a chance to see the product, that by and large people would like it. And that's been borne out by, according to Dave Meltzer, the readers poll that he's got from The Observer. We got something like better than a 99% approval rating.
Yes.
We got like 450 people called in, who subscribed to his publication. And there were maybe, 6 or 7 negatives or neutrals. So that's, pretty encouraging. This is the highest rated pay-per-view among his readers since 1989's Starrcade, I believe. Is that the one that had
I think it was
Flair?
I think that was Great American Bash 89.
Oh, okay. Great American Bash.
But certainly I knew that once the readers started calling into the Observer and giving them their thumbs up or thumbs down, it would be overwhelming thumbs up for this show. I was talking to Dave yesterday, Ron, and we were just so excited about everything in pro wrestling because it's a revolution that's happening in this business right now. The fact that you have aligned yourself with the AAA and become their promoters here in the United States, The fact that the IWC is also developing, it's just for the fans out there. There is hope because promotions like this that are becoming popular in this country. For those of you who had been turned off to just seeing the same old stuff time and time again, and you happened to buy that pay-per-view last week, or even had gotten a videotape from a friend or whatever, you are seeing the future of the business.
Well, what you're seeing is variety is the spice of life, and I'm not knocking the other organizations. It's just a different style. It's like if there was
it's an
only
exciting
one type
style,
of food,
Ron.
there's got to be different types. There's Italian food, there's Chinese food, now there's Mexican food, now there's Thai food. There's all kinds of different things that people need to be exposed to, and then they could, take what they like from each one and.
One from column A, one from column B, right?
What?
One from column A, one from column B.
Yeah.
Well, regardless, I enjoy different performers in WCW, WWF, but it's just for me watching wrestling over all these years, and especially seeing the stagnation that I feel, the stagnation of the business that has become in the last 3 or 4. With the promotions doing the same thing, and now WCW, having Hulk Hogan and Macho Man and everyone else coming in there. It's exciting, but it's like...
I had an interesting idea.
It's like a tennis match, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, where, you want to see something new.
And it was different, and it was exciting.
Yeah. I didn't go back and rewatch it yet, so I'll do that during our break.
I'm going to put that link up that Roy actually sent the link of the entire show, and he posted it on not Roy, but there was a guy named Dan Brown, on our Pro Wrestling Spotlight private Facebook page, put a link, YouTube link for that entire card, and I'm going to put that up for patrons this week.
Yeah. Is it not on Peacock?
I don't think so.
That's crazy. I'll look into it. I'll let you know.
Please let us know.
Yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, I mean, you guys were saying it was good. The first glimpse of numbers seemed really good. That it was, as far as like, you guys talk about it later, as far as like selling tickets for it and the amount of money made in-house, it was doing better than the last WCW pay-per-view. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of reasons to do it again.
Yeah, there were plenty of reasons, but unfortunately it never happened.
Yeah. You weren't there, were you?
No, I was not in California. No. I was out of the picture. Sold my stock. Cashed out.
Yeah, and that would have
just
been
in the nick of time.
Yeah, right.
Because it kind of fell apart after this.
Yeah, that was it. This was like the big,
and that was even it for Skoler, and even with AAA, and they had a falling out, and it didn't last much longer than that.
Yeah. I just also love that, what was it, the International Wrestling Council?
IWC, yeah.
I just love that that's what that is, because the IWC we hear nowadays is Internet Wrestling Community. Mm. So it usually takes me a quick second when you start talking about the IWC, and I'm all like, why is he talking about Twitter? But no, it was great. I don't know why. I think that's what's going to be one of the fun things to ask about when we get them all sat down again. What really stopped this from happening again? Or was there ever an intention of doing it again?
That's true. That's that's a good question. Yeah.
Because there may not have been. Let's see. You guys talk about how WCW brought in Hogan, and Skoler really tries to hammer home a joke about Vince coming into WCW to do the announcing. like he says, he goes, wouldn't that be funny? And you're like, yeah. He's like, no, like, really, wouldn't it be funny? And you're like, yeah, I mean, I would laugh. He goes, but like, really, like, if he came into the announcing, it'd be funny. And you're like, what are you doing? Like,
Ron wanted that to happen.
Yeah, he was crushing it. So
he had a youth-like, it still does to a certain extent, a youth-like enthusiasm about him.
Yeah. Oh, he's great. You guys talk about how the business is changing, and it's you can see it including the style of wrestling more and more, and that becomes a very big part of WCW, the Luchas, just not in this way.
Right.
I think that was cool. Yeah, and they estimated about 70,000 buys. That's one of the things you guys mentioned. It's not bad for a show that wasn't promoted.
Absolutely. It wasn't promoted at all, really.
Yeah.
Screwed that up big time.
Yeah. Let's see. We got a few calls that I had a lot of fun with. You said, even because you were ready, you said, I'm letting all my fans know right now, any callers, strictly, we're only talking about AAA.
Yeah.
We're only taking calls about the AAA show that just took place because we have Ron Skoler here and we don't want to waste his time. And you hammered that home. The first caller was Matt from Smithtown, who said it was one of the best pay-per-views he has ever seen. The Eddie Guerrero versus the American Love Machine was one of the best matches he's ever seen. He asked if Octagon really got hurt. And Scholar's all like, let's just say he's not as hurt as we thought he was.
It looked good, though.
Yes. And then after that, this is your second caller. And there's a couple calls right after because it doesn't take too much time.
Okay.
Let's go back to the phones. We got Nick from Wantagh. You're next.
Hello, John.
Yes.
This is Nick.
How you doing, Nick?
All right, yourself?
Very good.
How do I get a hold of wrestling shootout tapes?
Excuse me?
How do I get a hold of some wrestling shootout tapes?
What do you mean by that?
Well, the card that they had Friday night is called Wrestling Shootout.
Okay, that's available only on pay-per-view right now. That's the only thing I can tell you.
And they said it was. They said that card was number 3. I was just wondering how to get hold of number 1 and 2.
We'll try to get some information for you, Nick. Okay? I'll talk to you next week. All right, thanks for your call. And, of course, listeners, I instructed if you want to talk about the AAA, let's get their opinion on that show last week. Let's go to Leslie from the Bronx. You're next. Hello? Leslie from the Bronx. You're next. Not there. Dominic from Valley Stream. You're next. Hello?
John.
Yes.
Dominic Valenti, how you doing?
Okay.
Comment on the AAA show last week. It was a great pay-per-view. It was done excellent. My hat goes off to Ron Skoler and anybody else that was ever in charge of putting it together. Excellent cage match, just like the ones that they should have now, which they don't. And I was impressed by the whole pay-per-view. It was very good and very well done.
First time did you ever see the Lucha product?
Excuse me?
First time you ever saw the Lucha product?
No. I catch the Lucha every week. I catch it on Galavision.
Uh-huh.
So if I don't see it, I tape it.
Okay.
And it's a great show, and it's never a letdown.
All right, we appreciate your comments.
Okay, John. Talk to you later, buddy. Bye-bye.
955-1240. We'll take another couple of calls. We appreciate Ron Skoler coming on the air with us today. Is Leslie from the Bronx there now? Okay. Steve from West Hempstead, you're next. I tell you. Ron. Is Ron still there?
I'm here.
Okay. A lot of calls coming in.
Where was that last caller from?
The last one?
Yeah.
The one with the music?
No, the guy talking. Dominic.
It was from Valley Stream.
Okay, so they have Galavision in Valley Stream. That's interesting.
Yeah, Nassau County. Suffolk County, we don't have it here at all. And I certainly hope that it comes in this area soon.
There you go. That guy, Nick, I couldn't be, I wanted to lambast him, I just wanted to go off on him, but I couldn't because I'd met him several times. He'd come to all the events, and he's the guy that we booked Captain Lou Albano to be at his son's bowling birthday party when I was on NYG. So I let him go. I wanted to say, what the F are you? This is.
You were boiling over.
Yes. So I was kinder than I really should have been to him.
Yeah. You could almost hear you taking a deep breath and counting to bring your heart rate down. Because as soon as he asked that, you're just like dead silent.
Yeah.
Just.
And of course, our little musical interlude that lasts 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Less than 2 seconds. I mean, I really wish I could say it every time we hear it, and it's only that one little snippet before I cut them off. I wish I would have known. I should have let that play out 29 years ago.
Yeah, I wonder where it would go. It's just awesome. Leslie from the Bronx wasn't saying anything, so I like that you tried to go back to Leslie. I don't think you ever get back to Leslie, by the way.
No.
But You guys talk about the announcers, about how incredible the announcers were explaining everything.
They were. Yeah. They were awesome.
And you put over Rey Mysterio Jr. like crazy. I love listening to you guys just talk about how he may be the greatest wrestler in the world that long ago.
Teenager.
Before he's even, yeah. And before he's even on like a massive platform. You know what I mean?
No, he wasn't on the worldwide platform yet, but you just saw it in him. I mean, the first time I saw him work, I was like, holy shit. Where did this guy come from?
Do you remember what stood out? Because I think that initially a lot of people were going to think that you meant that he, did moves really fast.
What stood out to me was just his athleticism, his work rate, the fact that he was a small, little, skinny kid that was doing these incredible moves, but it was also your dancing partner, because I'd seen him against Psychosis. And Psychosis and Ray had this chemistry, and their matches were just incredible. So that's what stood out to him. But it was like, and the fact that he was a teenager doing this stuff, he hasn't even filled out yet. I mean, wow. And of course, he's still doing it.
Yeah. Do you remember back then his ability to sell? Like, was the match incredible because you found yourself believing it?
It was, it definitely took down that that suspension of disbelief. I mean, because you see things that he was doing that, like, it shouldn't be done.
Yeah,
he could get himself killed. So it was like watching a trapeze artist without a net. And it was like you were glued. You couldn't take your eyes off of him to see what would be happening next. And when he dived through the ropes or do a plancha or whatever the lucha move may be, for me, I was just getting introduced to the style when I first saw him. I wasn't even really that familiar with the style until I got involved with it, and I was blown away. I was like, I've never seen anything like this.
And his precision in those.
His precision, yeah. And Psychosis was a great heel, and he was such a young baby. I mean, literally a baby face, literal baby face.
Yeah.
And when I seen him without the hood on, without the mask on for the first time, I'm like, this kid looks like he's in like 6th grade.
Yeah.
And how Conan talked him up, and Conan knew. And seeing him for yourself for the first time, it was like, this kid is spectacular. But you always worried, like, could he compete, especially when he went to WCW? Could he hold up there? And he did. Until they did the gimmick where they took his mask from him.
That was the worst run.
That was horrible. My voice went up. You hear it? I got a little emotional. It's horrible.
Yeah, I just think he's great. And I think it's awesome you guys are seeing that. And I also love hearing you guys say Rey Mysterio Jr. because a lot of people forget that he was a junior.
Right.
But like that's how we knew him, and that's why I slip up from time to time and still say junior.
I do too.
I mean, my brother has an autograph of his that's junior.
Yeah.
Because he got it so long ago. And that's why I also loved it when Conan inducted him. And he induced him as Rey Mysterio Jr.
Yes.
Like,
those were for me at CAC, being there and being part of it. And the fact that he still remembers and he's still gracious.
Yeah.
And he's always embraced me when we've run into each other, and just a great person.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine Ray had to be the same when you met him the first time that he is now.
Yeah. He's a, multimillionaire superstar, but he's still the same. I still see him as a kid. I do.
Like his graciousness. I can't imagine
he's still the same.
Later.
He's still the same as he was. He's very gracious. He's very respectful. He's appreciative, and he remembers.
Yeah.
That was his entree to the United States.
Yeah. And it's crazy too, because he was with his wife at this time. I don't know if they were married yet, but they were together.
They were together. Yeah. What a long lasting romance that has been. And, also I remember just the best memories was like that first ECW show. How excited he was to be at ECW with Psychosis and picking them up at the airport and then them putting their hoods on, their masks on before we entered the arena, and how much they went over, how appreciative the fans were when they see it. It was magical, man. It's like that was a magical time, and he's a magical performer, and he is. And the fact that he's in the Hall of Fame and he's still, he's injured right now, I guess, but the fact that he's in the Hall of Fame and he's still doing it.
Yeah.
And his son has gotten so much better.
His son's so good, dude.
His son is a great heel.
Natural. He is so underrated and underappreciated. And I think it's going to be a long time. I think a lot of people see him the way they saw him on his debut, and he is so much further along than that.
Oh, he is. He's progressed tremendously. And the fact now with the heel and the storyline that he's in right now with Mommy.
Yeah.
What a dynamic. What a chemistry they have with each other, too.
Yeah, outrageously.
It's freaking awesome.
The fact that they work together the way that they do is kind of like insane.
Yeah, she's incredible, too.
Yeah, she could be a movie star whenever she wants.
Absolutely.
There's a few of them now where I've said enjoy them while you can while they're wrestling, because Hollywood could take them any second. And she's one of them.
And now that Endeavor owns them, look at those. Look at the power of those agents. Used to be William Morris. I mean, these guys can all cross over. There's a certain amount of them that could really cross over. She's certainly one of them.
Yep. I wonder too. Remember the WWE movie section? Remember how they did WWE films?
Yeah.
And they did Condemned and the Marine and all
that.
Yeah. Well, now with Endeavor, you could have that, but on a whole other level.
Yeah, on a whole different scale, whole different level.
Yeah.
What a great acquisition. What a great merger that and we haven't even seen.
Scratch the surface.
We haven't scratched the surface yet with what's going to happen for them as they continue on, and the fact that the old guy is now finally getting out, forcefully getting out. He did it, he was the man who did it. He brought it to life. He started WrestleMania. He, the good and the bad things that he's done. But now let's see, with a company as big as they are now, sky's the limit. And I've always been a critic because I've always looked at the back, the backstage stuff, the internal, the way these guys were used and abused, and it's all new. It's all different now, obviously, but it kind of gets me a little excited about it because it's still in my blood, and I want to be entertained. I want to be able to come on even our podcast like this and sing their praises when you feel excitement building, and I feel excitement building about them now that I haven't had in a long time. Long time.
I think something that I've always liked about, because I think that there's a lot of people who talk about how, especially back then, you even stepped away from it. You just felt like it was too negative.
Yeah.
But I think that you didn't come from a negative space. It felt like you came from that you truly believed that this crazy world could be run and operated by actually decently good people. Yeah. And that's why you were so drawn to Foley so early. Here's a good person. You were drawn to the Conans and Rays, and I mean Paul was a little out of both sides of his mouth. But
there's just so many that you kind of rally behind, and to see the growth and to see like the Mick Foley from the first appearance he made in September '89 and as Cactus Jack Manson, and you to see their passion for what they do as a craft. That's where you have to be a fan of the individual, the performer. So yeah, I mean I always loved it. It's just that I hated it at the same time.
Yeah. No, because it could have always been better backstage. It didn't have to be bad for people backstage for it to be good.
And the steroids and the scandals and, all of the deaths and the overdoses and, And we're in a whole different era now. So that shit don't happen anymore, which is wonderful.
Yeah. I feel like you probably enjoy today's wrestling more than most because it finally is rid of so many of the things you thought were not needed and only hurt the product.
Most recently. And I did get kind of excited when AEW started. I was like, all right, this is big league stuff. And they had the opportunity to really do some great things, but it's kind of like it's impossible to watch.
I can't
because it's all over the place, and it's and they have great talent, the Samoa Joes of the world, and even Jericho I still enjoy, and some of the others that are in there, MJF I really enjoy, and but there's too much nonsense. There's too much stuff that don't make sense. There's no cohesive long-term storyline building. It seems like it's booked on the fly every week.
Yeah. Turbo Tony.
Nice guy, but bizarre from what I heard, right?
Yeah. I've never heard anyone describe him as a totally normal person.
No. Well, look at his freaking press conferences and shit.
Yeah.
Look at every time he's on camera.
How could you be? Yeah. And how could you be? How could you be raised in a situation like that and turn out like everybody else who grew up the way they did? You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you can't be normal, but it's fine.
Can you imagine if you had like relatives or like, here's a couple $100 million. Just go ahead and, you're a big wrestling nut. There you go. Here's some money. Start it. Do it, son.
Yeah. Can you do it with $100 million?
Yeah. Well,
maybe.
No, let me think.
Yeah.
And look at Cody and CM Punk. I mean, look what they could have done with them in AEW. And now it's going to happen in WWE.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's insane. It is insane. However, if somebody donates us $100 million, we'll bring back Weekend of Champions at least once.
Oh, let's do one. I still get calls from Frank Patz all the time. We got to do one, man. We got to do one. I was like, yeah, okay.
I'll make the programs.
Yes, you could do that. For sure.
Okay. Let's take a few more calls.
Yes, let's do it. 955-1240 is the number to call here at WGBB.
We got more calls coming in from Hoboken, New Jersey. We'll go to Jason. Jason, you're next. Jason, are you there? Hello?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about tacos.
A lot of idiots today calling up. Brian from Belmore, you're next. Hello?
Hey, John?
Yes, Brian, you're next.
I just want to say I ordered the Lucha Libre pay-per-view.
Yeah.
That was the most amazing form of wrestling I have seen in my whole life. And I've been watching wrestling since I was born. And that match with Conan and Pedro Aguayo was probably the greatest cage match. And I was just wondering when the next Lucha Libre pay-per-view, if there's going to be any more, which would be a wise investment for World Championship Wrestling, but if there's going to be any more, when will they be? And,
Well, we have the man right now that can answer that question. Ron, when's the next pay-per-view scheduled?
Next pay-per-view. Well, I really don't know. If the numbers are what we think they are, then there certainly would be another pay-per-view. Whether it's with WCW or not is up to WCW. If they want to do another pay-per-view with us, then, we're delighted to do another pay-per-view with them because I think overall they did a good job, and the tentative date would be in April. But, Eric Bischoff has to make that decision as to whether or not he wants to, keep up the investment that he put into this in terms of, not so much in terms of money because it was profitable, but in terms of putting in time and having his people, take time away from other projects to work on this and develop this. And, I hope that they decide that they want to stick with it. I think that if they don't, that would be a decision that's difficult to understand. But, it is up to them. And, I really have to wait and see what Eric wants to do.
Okay. Thanks for your call. 955-1240 is the number to call. We'll take about another 3 minutes of calls for Ron. And
John?
Yes.
I want to say one thing, though. The pay-per-views are great and everything, and it enables a lot of people to see the new product. But I don't want pay-per-views to take the place of house shows either. we did a house show in New York at the Paramount on July 24th. I know you were there. We intend to go back to the Paramount in early '95. I would like to do 2 or 3 pay-per-views a year. They have to be truly special events, but I don't want them to take the place of the live events either.
Well, the live events, IWC AAA style, is certainly crowd pleasing. You have to be there live to really feel what's going on.
Believe it or not, this was pretty restrained for us.
Yeah, you've had some wild crowds. I know the first one that I was involved with, the August '93 show with Jake Roberts against that triple, that him and seeing Karras and Conan.
Yeah,
it was almost a riot there.
La Revancha.
Yeah, the very first show that turned away 8,000 people, and people were throwing dirty diapers on Jake and mustard, and it was just. And he went into the back after the show and just caused a riot back there. And then he stormed back out to the ring to get more abuse from the fans. It was,
we didn't do the elaborate ring entrances this time, and the show was kind of rushed, and a few other things. But this is what we could do at 65%.
Yeah. Well, let's take 2 more calls for you, Ron. Let's go to Eddie from Manhattan. Eddie, you're next. Eddie, are you there? All right, let's go to Howard from New Hyde Park.
Howard Stern.
Man, Ron, I tell you what, you brought out the animal on the fans today.
I can't hear what they're saying.
Well, there's a lot of people just saying crude comments and hanging up today.
Oh,
unbelievable!
Is this unusually so, or do we?
Well, the last time it happened was when you were here.
Well, what can I tell you?
Only kidding. Actually, a lot of calls coming in, but
I mean, if you had a show on Opera, it probably wouldn't happen, right?
You never know.
Show on Opera.
No,
let's do one of those.
What's Opera?
Let's do an opera show. What's Opera?
Oh, a show on Opera. I thought it was like a network.
No, it's a musical genre.
Yeah, one of those. Oof. Why didn't you get into opera?
I actually did once.
Really?
They threw tomatoes at me when I was on stage trying to sing the Barbara Seville.
Yeah.
You know that song, don't you? The Barbara Seville.
No.
Why not?
I've heard it. Sure, I've heard it.
Barbara of Seville, man. That's a great opera song. I actually can sing that very well if you'd like to hear it.
Barbara of Seville. It's by Gioacchino Rossini.
Right.
Let's see. Do you want me to download it? Right? This is 2.5 hours. I can't find this.
What do you mean?
Hold on.
Oh, it's like a big play. Yeah, I see it here.
Oh, yeah. This is a lot of, I've heard a lot of this on Looney Tunes.
Shall I?
Yeah, a lot of that was on.
We'll get what? We'll get a strike against us by singing the Barbara Seville.
We'll do it on our debut Drunken Tirade episode. We'll be like, that's it. Let's close it out with opera.
Do a pay-per-view that's only available for patrons, and then we could do what the hell we want and not put it up there on YouTube.
Yeah, be perfect.
That's right. That's something to look forward to for 2024.
Yeah. I like the kid calling in. I'd like to talk about tacos.
Yes, that was a nice one, wasn't it?
He thought he was so funny.
Yes, he laughed. He laughed so hard all day.
Yeah,
he was so proud of himself. He got through, and so actually he's never forgot that day.
Yeah, I'm sure he
in the loony bin wherever he is today.
Maybe he works his Taco Bell. Tacos.
I
just imagine every time he even has tacos to this day, he starts giggling, and you're like, you wouldn't believe what I did one time.
It was huge, brother.
It's huge, big time, dude, big time. I like how you immediately called him an idiot. He's a kid. You're like, what an idiot.
Hey, it doesn't matter how old you are; you could still be an idiot, right?
Yeah, that's true. No, I've long believed it.
Hey, I met some 2-year-olds that were idiots.
Yeah. So good. Let's see. I did think it was very interesting, though. Ron did say he didn't want the pay-per-views to take place of house shows, that he still felt like a big importance for house shows. I thought that was interesting and cool, you know. And I think they said they were coming back to the Paramount. Is that right?
That's what he was trying to do, but I don't think that never happened, actually.
That never happened. And then he was going to try and go back to LA as well. And I think it took a long time before that happened again.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe that's a good question for him, but maybe there was one more, maybe, or maybe, you know, this was kind of even though it was great to be pay-per-view, having WCW do the pay-per-view, but it kind of fell apart after that too. His whole situation with AAA, and so that's it was a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a cool time. I'm glad that even with how it kind of played out at the time, that I'm glad that both you and Ron especially can look back on it with like great fondness of that time we did this cool stuff. Yeah, you know, because it'd be really easy, I think, especially for Ron, to feel really slighted by it and hate the wrestling business and not want to talk about it. But his attitude towards it when he comes back to talk about it is just all like, yeah, wasn't that so cool at the time?
It was fun. It was, very fond memories. And for me, it was the most successful thing I was involved with in pro wrestling.
Yeah.
In my entire career, being a part of that August 93 show that did that huge gate. I mean, that was kind of the pinnacle for my career in regard to how successful it was.
Gotcha. I mean, I even like that he still has the IWAS mini title, and he was so
the
happy to show
title.
it.
The mini.
Yeah,
the
mini one. He was so excited, and like he couldn't stop smiling when he was holding it. He's like, "This is it."
He loved it, man. He was like a kid in a candy store. He really was cool. Beaming and smiling, and it was exciting, man. And it was just kind of it was his idea.
I think it's great. But that's the last time you have Ron on, I think, ever.
That is it.
Yeah.
These are all like probably the last time appearances by almost everybody that we bring on.
Yeah.
You know, Bruno's already had his last one. We got Meltzer.
Wonder too.
I think Meltzer comes back one more time. Yeah, he does. 1/8/95 Meltzer.
I'm going to go back and listen to, because remember there was that one girl who called in a long time ago to talk about how great Candido was. And there was speculation that it may have been Tammy.
It was her.
And then I saw something else where it was like, well, it couldn't have been because XYZ. But hearing her voice here, I'm going to kind of play those back to back.
Oh, you got to. That's a good thing to work on for like the next episode, is to kind of do a comparison of the voices. It was her.
I'm going to put those together and we'll know, because that was only a year or two before this.
It was a year before.
Yeah, so it was like
93.
Yeah, so it's not like her voice would be that different yet. So,
or was it 93? Or was it where was it? Was it on GBB, or was it because Cornette was on?
I think it was 92. Yeah, I think it was 92.
So it was 92. So it was. It
was like 2 years
EVD.
before this.
It wasn't NYG. I know that.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
But I have the clip ready I have the original clip we had taken of that ready to go, and obviously I have this, so it'll only take a minute. I'll post maybe a short.
Oh, so you're gonna do it on this show? Yeah, good idea.
You know, or I'll make a short to promote this one, and just let that be that. We'll see. We'll figure it out, man. We're just we're just drinking.
Well,
this is
I might start any second.
Chris and Tammy do call in, though, and they're calling from Tennessee, and they are super heels down south, and it's really cool. Like I said, I cut a lot. I just wanted to get more stuff in, but she has such a great attitude about it. I thought it was great, even when you came on. You're all like, I hear they love you down there. And she goes, well, they love me. But they talk a little bit about how easy it is to get those fans in Tennessee riled up, and you also asked them how they broke into the business, and so I got that right here.
Okay.
But yeah, if you're from up north, in some of these little towns, they still think the Civil War is going on.
Well, the one thing that's great, it makes it a lot easier to do promos. It's so easy to insult the people.
All you have to do is be honest and talk about everything you've seen on the trip up to that town. the people that are on the side of the road, sitting on their porches outside their little shacks that are falling apart, picking tobacco out of their teeth. It's pretty nasty.
Guys,
besides that, it's great though, John.
Oh yeah.
Got a lot of friends there?
Friends?
Well,
we're probably the two most unsocial people you could ever meet in your life.
Well, and when we had both really close to Tom Pritchard, but he's moved out now. He's moved back to Houston, and mostly, the rest of the crew was pretty nice. We're still, pretty friendly with Brian Lee and
but we
the rest
know,
of the guys.
But we know when to keep our distance so we don't get into the trouble that they get into.
How did you both break into the business?
Well, Chris, you can go ahead first.
Well, my grandfather used to wrestle for a couple of years, and I got in through him, and I would just start going to the shows and putting up rings. And when I was about around 14, 15, I started working outlaw shows up in New York with the Headhunters who work for Victor Quinones now.
Right.
They were working way back then too. They were about 15 at the same time, and we worked on these outlaw shows, and just from there, it's what I always to do, and eventually got in with Dennis Carluzzo and Larry Sharp. They started using me a little bit, and I went to Memphis, and then eventually ended up here, and I met Tammy back home in Jersey.
Well, I'll start that subject.
Okay,
we
fine.
met. It was a high school love affair. We met senior year in high school. He was just starting to wrestle. I knew him as just this kid from the high school, not as a wrestler. And we started seeing each other, and I would go to every single match he had anywhere and put a ton of miles on my car to take pictures of his matches and videotape. Well, Bill After, who, of course, everybody knows is the editor of about 10 magazines, he got a hold of my pictures somewhere and, gave me a phone call and asked me if I wanted to do freelance photography. I said, sure, it'd be easy way to make, a couple bucks. So I did that for about a year and a half, and Chris is coming down here to work a couple Smoky Mountain shows. He didn't get his job yet. It was just a few shots here and there. And I came down with him to shoot the matches, and that's how I met Jim Cornette, and one thing led to another, and here I am.
Wow, and certainly you've taken the wrestling business by storm over the last couple of years.
Well, I hope so.
Well, I met you guys. I used to see you guys at all the independent shows. I traveled to Carluzzo shows and the conventions that I promoted and autograph sessions. Both of you were, Tammy, you were there taking pictures.
Right.
And Chris was there, very aggressively trying to advance his career at various different levels. And I tell you, I was fortunate enough to have you both work a show for me back at the Weekend of Champions last year, and just phenomenal. And watching the Smoky Mountain tapes, you're two of the brightest young stars in this business, and I got
thank you.
Got to take my hats off to both of you. And
the early days.
Yeah, I got together in high school, which is cool because that also leads Lynn's credibility to the idea that clip could have been them, because obviously it was later on, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it was really cool. They talked about how he was good friends with Tom Pritchard. That was the first person he thought of, was Pritchard. Yep. And when he comes into WWF, they come in together.
Yep. Yeah, they were tight. And Tom is, what a great guy Tom is.
Yeah. Did you ever work around Tom?
I knew Tom when he was a kid at the
Really?
wrestling conventions back in the WFIA conventions. And that's when I first met Tom. He was a teenager. He was a kid. And that's when I first met Eddie Gilbert, when he was a teenager at these conventions in the mid-'70s. But yeah, I mean, Tom was just a kid. I mean, and Tammy, seeing her at the Carluzzo shows, I just she's stunning. First of all, taking pictures, and I'm sure that's how Apter connected with her, because he saw her at all these shows taking pictures, and she probably had some good skills as a photographer.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of those times, especially guys like Bill who've been around for a minute, when you see someone who, especially like young women, getting involved in your career path, and you don't normally see that, it's really easy to become supportive.
Of course, absolutely, and I'm sure that's what he did, because and also Bill, they weren't easy to. They had photographers. They had Roy London. Yeah. They had several photographers. Bill, of course, one of the all-time greats in the history of the business. And I remember, me painstakingly always sending him, can you use this? Can you use that? And when he started buying photos from me, I was just thrilled, because I felt like, all right, I really made it if I'm having pictures in the wrestling cover stories and Inside Wrestling and number of shows. And they paid really well in comparison to some of the others.
Wow, that's cool. I wonder how many I wonder how many times Bill saw someone coming up that he just felt like that's a young kid who I can help.
Yeah, he's
and
mentored.
specifically looked.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I could see him like putting together the magazine and being like, okay, I need to get a photo or two from this kid and going through your photos. This one we can use. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It was like a thrill for me, just being able to get to know him, even during my Fred Blassie fan club days, and him selecting my Blassie club to be fan club of the year for them and Inside Wrestling in '74. I mean, it was crazy time. And then as I weaseled my way into the press row, and developed a stronger friendship with him, and then started showing him pictures because he knew he didn't go to all the Philadelphia TV tapings, and I did. It's the beginning of '75, so he knew that he'd get some good stuff from me, and especially when I was in Boston at college, and I'd go to all the Boston Garden shows and shoot at ringside. And a number of my shots, like Moskris and Koloff was at IWA. He bought photos from me from there. Blackjack's winning the title when Graham pinned Bruno at the first match at Boston Garden. So there's a lot of pictures that he purchased from me back then.
Did he ever give any tips? Was they ever like, hey, if you do this, did you get this result or anything?
Not that I recall, no.
Yeah. No. So he was just more of a different kind of mentor, not technique driven, but like content driven. That's cool.
I remember when my book was coming out, and he was, before, as I was getting the book written with Greg Oliver, he would share things and say, this should be done like this. And so
that's cool.
To this day, if I reached out, he's just such a freaking legend. Him and George, those are legends, man.
Oh, both of them were so nice to me when I met him. I've talked to Bill a few times now, and every time it's almost like, oh my God, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Bill was like the one autograph when I went to StarCast.
Mm-hmm.
That was the one autograph that I was actively hunting.
Wow.
There was other ones I knew I would get, but there was one where I was like, where's Bill? Because he wasn't like, there wasn't a Bill meet and greet, right? I ended up having to go because I have, I'm an Andy Kaufman guy, and I know Bill's attachment to Andy, right?
Yeah,
so I had this big poster.
If it wasn't for him, it would have happened.
Wouldn't happen, at least not the way that it did.
Yes.
And so, I have this poster of Andy Kaufman in Memphis, kind of a deal. And it's like a comic book style. And I'd already gotten it signed by Jerry Lawler. I'd gotten signed by Jimmy Hart. Jim Ross signed it, but on accident. Which is fine. He was in the movie, so I give him the pass. But then I carried it around for me the whole weekend trying to find Bill Apter, and I went to a karaoke thing he was doing and found him while he was cleaning a table in the back, but he was like all over, just nonstop moving. And I got him to like pause and sign the poster for me so that way I could have everyone could on it. And then I think about it too, and had I had the forethought to realize I was going to be able to meet Jarrett at CAC, I'd have brought that and one of the old. I have a Nashville or a Memphis program from one of the events where Andy was there, and
okay,
I would have had him sign that too. And I realized I was going to get the chance to meet him. I didn't think I was going to get to meet him first off, and secondly, we didn't know he was going to pass less than a year later.
Yeah, but he was sleeping that night anyway, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was sleeping. But I saw him in the morning briefly. He showed up briefly where I happened to be. And so if it wasn't for that. Yeah. But yeah, Bill Apter's awesome, man. It was just cool that was a connection there too. So you asked them about Smoky Mountain, any feuds they got coming up. Talk about Brian Lee, Cactus Jack. Candido talks about working in Japan and how he's been working with Baba out there. You guys do hit a little bit on the rumor that Tammy was going to come in and manage Rick Rude. She said she thought that rumor was incredible because she had no idea. And I did think it was notable. You asked if she was in contact with WWF or WCW, and she goes, if WWF called, I would do whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she did.
She did. She quite literally did.
Yeah.
And then when you asked about WCW, she basically just let Chris answer that because he was in talks with them. Mm-hmm. And she puts over Sherry and Diamond Doll because she said there's not much room for her in WCW right now because they have Sherry and Diamond Doll.
Yeah.
I don't remember Diamond Doll.
Yeah, I have a vague recollection. I can't talk specifically about it because it's a long time ago, wasn't it?
All right.
Yeah.
All right. I just if something sparked, great. If not, keep it moving.
Mm-hmm.
This is the clip where you asking about the NWA show coming up. They talk about some matches they had, and Tammy says some really interesting things at the end.
Okay, back with the program, and on the phone, direct from Tennessee, Chris Candido and Tammy Fytch.
Hello.
How you doing? Next weekend's a big weekend. You'll be appearing up here at the Cherry Hill Armory.
Yeah.
And that'll be Fan Slam 2 and Dennis Carluzzo's NWA tournament. Any thoughts and feelings on coming back home?
Well, first of all, I cannot wait to get home. I try to make it home for a week out of every month, in between shows, where so we have a long break somewhere, because I just can't take Knoxville, Tennessee for that long of a time. Cannot wait to come home. And it'd be nice to work with the hometown crowd for once, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to the NWA tournament. I just wish it could be that these people who are in it can actually perhaps have worked together, maybe gotten some of Jim Crockett's guys and even some of Todd Gordon's guys. Would look forward to working with like a Sabu or Shane Douglas. But I think Dennis did, he did a good job putting a tournament together with what he had to work with, and because Eddie Gilbert will be coming back to the Philadelphia area, which hopefully people will be interested in. Jerry Lawler will be there, myself, and Al Snow, who a lot of guys might not know, but really has
Fabulous worker.
Really had some great matches with Sabu up in the Michigan area.
Yeah, I just saw one of those. I just saw one of those tapes this week of the ladder match that Al had with Sabu there, and it was pretty wild. And he certainly looks to be a great worker for those fans who haven't seen him. He's another up-and-coming great star.
Well, if you want to talk about ladder matches, right now I want to tell everyone who's listening to this radio program, tell your mother, tell your friends, tell your best buddy, everybody, to go to the Philadelphia show this weekend. Chris Candido and Tracy Smothers are having a ladder match together, and let me tell you, they had a month-long set of ladder matches, and they were better than the WrestleMania match with Shawn Michaels. It blew it away. It didn't get the credit it deserves because everybody thinks Shawn Michaels is just God, but Chris Candido and Tracy Smothers had the most incredible ladder matches I think anybody's ever seen. So if anybody wants to see a good match, you got to go to the Philly show and see this ladder match. You're not going to regret it.
And that's coming up this week, right?
Yes.
That's what, Thursday?
Yeah, Thursday the 17th at Stanton Hall in Philadelphia.
What enthusiasm she had.
She's not a fan of Shawn Michaels.
At that time.
She was very clear on record that Chris Candido is way better than Shawn Michaels.
Of course.
Is that one of those, do you think she was like one of those protesting too much things?
No. Obviously, and it's really kind of sad in a way listening to this, how young and fresh and how enthusiastic and not really tarnished or tainted or abused everything that she went through. I mean, but also, part of whatever happened to her over the years, it's one of the biggest tragedies in the history of this business. The fall from grace that she has had. Yeah. But I have to say one thing about her too. She was a little snippy. She always was a little snippy. And maybe it's because of how beautiful she was and she knew it. She always had a little bit of a chip on her shoulder in the early days.
I wonder if part of it was a little, and the intent may have been self-preservation. Like, I'm going to get pushed around by all these guys if I don't.
Also a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure, like, who knows how many people were hitting on her at the time. It's the wrestling business and her hanging out in the locker rooms with Chris, and who the hell knows. But it could have been a defense mechanism for sure with her.
Outside of her being a little snippy, did you have difficulties working with her in general?
No, not in the time that I had her at the Weekend of Champions. No, I mean, it was she cut a really cool promo on me, which And I was like, I just saw something in her. I knew she was a star.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind. And Chris too was a star.
Yeah.
So it's sad. He's gone. She's never going to see the light of day again, most likely.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a fucking tragedy.
It is. You guys do take a few callers. Like I said, I didn't cut them, but Tammy talks about Sherry again, about how great she is and helping her with stuff. Talks about one of the guys talks about how great they both are and how he gets all his tapes from Ron and he's been watching all these tapes. And she's like, well, I'm glad somebody's making money off of these tapes. Like, and you're all like, no, Ron's official. And she goes, then we should be getting a cut, right? And he was like, I don't know about like the whole Ron thing's a little weird. And then Robin from Yonkers calls in and talks about how she's from the South and doesn't like hearing all this derogatory talk about the South. And
yes, I
Tammy,
remember that.
Tammy lets her know how she feels.
She certainly does.
I have it. I have the clip. We'll play the clip, and we can even go back and listen to a little more of that Tammy and go back and forth a little bit. But this is it. This is Tammy, what we believe to be Tammy, calling in some time ago.
Who is this?
This is Lynn from Memphis. I'm visiting New Jersey right now. I'm visiting some family.
Well, hell, my first and second guess both would have been wrong.
Yep. How you doing, Lynn?
I'm fine. How are you?
First time, I guess you listened to this illustrious program.
Yes, I visit up here in New Jersey, and I have family who listen to you, and they say you're really good, so I figured I'd take a listen.
Well, thank you. What part of Jersey are you calling from via Memphis?
Right now in Old Bridge.
Old Bridge?
Central.
Okay.
Okay, Jim, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Okay, I know you're really, your opinions are strong, and you know what you're talking about in the wrestling business. I was just wondering, I'm about to send in my year-end ballots for the Observer newsletter.
Okay.
And I was just wondering, I'm kind of stuck on these two categories. I'm stuck on the Rookie of the Year, and I'm stuck on the Underrated Wrestler of the Year. Now, the Rookie of the Year, I'm kind of torn between Chris Candido and Sabu. Who do you think is better?
Well, I tell you what, I have seen Candido, and I think he's super. I have not seen Sabu actually wrestle as of yet. But so I'm not as informed as one would think that I would be on this situation. But I know Candido's a heck of a wrestler, so I would vote for him. But, hey, like I said, I haven't seen the other guy.
Okay, that's good. That's what I was thinking of. And what about underrated wrestler? I'm kind of torn between Tom Pritchard and Danny Davis because I think they're both awesome, and no one gives them enough credit.
I say vote for a tie. I love both them guys.
Yeah? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay,
Boy, am I a diplomat or what?
You're a diplomat, Jim. Any questions for Jushin Thunder Liger or Sunny Beach?
Huh? Who?
Jushin Thunder Liger or Sunny Beach?
Liger.
Liger?
Yeah.
Go ahead, ask him a question. He's right here
He's not
listening.
there.
Sure he is.
No, he's not.
Jushin, are you there?
Hey,
He's
let me
not
this
there.
just goes to show you.
There. You're trying to trick me.
This just goes to show you that people from Tennessee are not as stupid as people from New Jersey.
Woo!
Because the other guy fell for it. She wouldn't. See that?
Well, I hope you have a good trip here, Lynn, and thank you for calling in.
Well, thank you.
Okay, take care now.
Bye-bye.
That's her.
That sounded just like her. Like, listen.
And it's her. Chris Candido.
Okay, back with the program and on the phone, direct from Tennessee.
Candido.
Chris Candido and Tammy Fytch.
Hello.
How you doing? Next weekend's a big weekend. You'll be appearing up here at the Cherry Hill Armory.
Yeah.
And that'll be Fan Slam 2 and Dennis Carluzzo's NWA tournament. Any thoughts and feelings on coming back home?
Well, first of all, I cannot wait to get home. I try to make it home for a week out of every month in between shows.
There's no doubt.
That's
no
her.
doubt. Yeah, 1,000%.
She put on the southern accent a little bit, same giggle, same pronunciation.
Yeah, the southern accent was just a gimmick that she was doing.
Yeah, that's her.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Tom Pritchard, Candido, the giggle, case closed.
Well, yeah, I would say with the giggle, case closed, because that was the whole conversation before, right? Like, oh, it's a little peculiar. She's putting over Tom Pritchard and Candido and putting over Cornette being so smart. And you're like, it's a lot there, but there was room for doubt because of where she went to school and where people at the time thought she met Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if she met him in high school, they were together.
Absolutely.
So,
and she was not in Memphis. She was just home. I mean, it's like that was just a gimmick. There's just a freaking. It was a little wrestling angle.
That was crazy. That's awesome. I'm glad we pulled that up. That was good
Me
stuff.
too.
Okay. Let's see. Where are we at?
Meltzer.
Meltzer. Yeah, and he talked about. We haven't played the Meltzer. That was the end of our Tammy segment.
Right.
So this is Meltzer. When he comes on, I thought it was really cool that Meltzer said there's a lot of wrestling he's excited about right now.
Yeah.
It's really easy to watch wrestling for a long time. You're really not excited about everything. And he seemed to be excited about a lot of stuff right now. So you asked him to compare this period of time with these new styles emerging to any other time. And he comes up with a pretty cool.
Let's hear him.
Dave, how can you compare this time period in pro wrestling with some of the new exciting promotions emerging in comparison to the past? So give us your feel on today's state of pro wrestling. Has there been another time like this in the past?
Well, 10 years ago exactly, 1984. We saw established pro wrestling, being over the next couple of years eaten alive by Vince McMahon, who had a new concept of pro wrestling, and a lot of people who were in the established part of the wrestling business, they laughed at him and thought he was going to spend his way out, his money, tap himself out financially. And WrestleMania, the first WrestleMania, showed that his concept was the one that was working. And it's a really interesting thing because I see so many parallels between that period and today. Only Vince McMahon the shoe is almost on the other foot. And hopefully, from his standpoint, he will learn from the mistakes of those a generation earlier, from the Bill Wattses and the Fritz von Erichs and all that, who, instead of laughing at these newcomers to the business that are on the verge of being successful, maybe it's time to pick up some of the reasons they're successful and remain number one. And it's going to be an interesting period for both WWF and even more so WCW, because WCW saw it right in their face. I mean, they produced a pay-per-view that was better than any pay-per-view they could ever do with the cast of characters they have, that drew more money as a house show than any show in the history of that company. And that has to be a very sobering thought when you have Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair, the two biggest names in wrestling, in a career versus career match. And then 2 weeks later, Conan and Perro Aguayo, draw a bigger crowd and more money. I mean, a bigger paid crowd.
Yeah, it was over $200,000, wasn't it?
Just over $200,000, and the other one was about $189,000.
The situation with some of the new promotions like AAA, IWC coming into play, as far as for national expansion, and McMahon certainly in 1984 started just taking over territory after territory, but he had a lot of money behind him. Some of the new promotions like ECW that are emerging, as far as the financial strength to grow, you think that'll be a problem for some of these new emerging companies?
Yes, that'll be the two problems are the financial strength and more so the exposure levels. I mean, the one advantage that McMahon had is he came in '84, and there was, of course, wrestling on television. Now in your area, in the New York area, he was already on.
Yeah,
I mean, he was the established guy. Let's look at California, where I'm from. We had the AWA here. And McMahon came in and into the local station the AWA was on and offered the station $100,000 a year to dump the AWA and put his show in the process. That's a heavy financial. It's a lot of money. It's even more money then than it is now, and it's still a lot of money now.
Yeah, it is.
And you're not going to see ECW or you're not going to see AAA spending $100,000 or $200,000, the equivalent today, let's say, or $150,000 to buy Vince McMahon's time slot. That's just not going to happen. So in that way, we're in a different situation. But conceptually, as far as like a new product and things like that, and we have pay-per-view, which we didn't have 10 years ago. It was just starting a few years after that. In that way, it's similar. And the key with the pay-per-view is that if you build yourself a base audience, you can make a lot of money running just a few shows on pay-per-view. If ECW could get enough exposure to where it could do profitable pay-per-views 7 times a year, it could make, it could be a profitable organization. And the same with AAA. They don't need to be running 200, 300 house shows a year in the United States. They don't even need to be running 10 house shows in the United States if they don't want to. They could make more money running 4 pay-per-views once they have established a base audience that will support them and continue to support them.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Very astute
Yep.
commentary by Mr. Meltzer.
I think that a lot of what he was saying there was really cool. The idea of WWE should be alarmed that they weren't outdrawing this with their top two guys.
Yep.
And again, he was saying one of the biggest issues for the smaller promotions are going to be just the idea of money and funding. And when you think about what happened in AAA and ECW, they ran out of money. They didn't run out of steam.
No. Yeah, it was finances for sure. And AAA was just kind of this organization that was just still to this day part of what AAA is. It's this organization and doing things on their own pace. And that's what kind of hurt them, I think, more than anything, was their inability to work in a real, true business atmosphere in the United States. And it still exists to this day. That promotion should be here in the United States, running Chicago, Phoenix, Los Angeles, New York, Florida. There's markets that they can make a decent showing in, but they just don't have the business sense to go ahead and do it, to really expand into this country.
Yeah. I also thought it was great. Him talking about how Vince needs to learn from the past and how Vince was being laughed at and scoffed at 84, that what he's doing was never going to work.
Yeah.
That Vince needed to focus on making sure he doesn't make that same mistake and actually start adapting to what the new guys are doing that's hot.
And, you could say what you want about Russo, but Russo was instrumental in opening his eyes.
Yep.
And especially when he had that magazine article that, Vince sees the style of what Russo was doing and slammed that magazine down in that meeting with the rest of the guys that were working creative with him, saying, this is what we got to be doing.
Yeah, exactly.
So Russo was instrumental in that. Regardless of what people say, he was a big part of it. It's kind of fascinating because I was listening to Eric Bischoff with Conrad Thompson, and they were saying, if you were financing AEW or it was at AEW, he brought Russo. It was about if you would have the opportunity to bring either a Tony Khan or a Vince Russo in for a promotion, who would you bring in? And he said, I'd bring Russo in, as long as he was not running the show himself, as long as he had a sounding board. Where Tony Khan, he goes, he's just lost. He don't know what he's doing.
Yeah, and it comes across that way a lot, and I think that I think the honeymoon period is over, and I think that's why you're seeing the numbers you're seeing. I think a lot of people have given up. But
and all the all the backstage drama and all that nonsense.
Yeah. And as much as, because guys like Cornette will always say that the Attitude Era hurt as much as it helped, long-term wise, because it brought in so many things, but it is the reason that WWF survived and the others didn't, because of what they leaned into.
Yeah. And it was at those 83 weeks that WCW was beating WWF in the ratings, and then it turned and it never went back.
Yeah.
It took a while, but that was an exciting time.
Yeah, absolutely. Meltzer does say that AAA needs a lot more exposure on both Spanish and English speaking networks. The Galavision just isn't big enough. It's just not going to do the job.
Yeah.
And he does even say that he thought this was like top 5 of their shows, but it was like barely top 5. He was like maybe 6. He goes, they do a lot of better shows a lot more often. And he said that watching AAA in Tijuana is very different.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I thought that was remarkable because remember Conan said that to me on your show.
Yep.
Still true, I guess.
Still true.
Yeah. You asked him about the shoot style wrestling. He was watching UWFI, and he went on and on about the commentary guy. He said the best commentary in the world, and he's going to be doing commentary for UFC, and this guy's incredible, and he puts Bobby Heenan to shame, and he said the only wrestling commentator who might be as good as is Vince, and that made me laugh because no one talks about how great Vince was as a commentator.
He was fabulous.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
He didn't overthink it.
No. And I still love when he did his promos with the guys and his facial expressions. And I mean, he was a phenomenal announcer.
Yeah.
Very believable. Knew how to get the story over.
Exactly. He knew the story. He knew he was pushing. He knows who. Like, he knew, like you said, his facial expressions were perfect. He could make a expression but still be professional. Like, I don't agree with that. I'm a good guy. But then also be like, well, I'm professional, though. Yeah, he wasn't playing it. And I think as much as people...
Yeah, and even his transition when he had the issues with Bret Hart, in that first little shoving match at the announcer's desk. And he was so believable. The first time he got stunned by Stone Cold at the Garden. I mean, that was earth-shattering, groundbreaking stuff.
Yes. I felt like, as much as people give him grief about being like, what a maneuver, I think it was perfect because it didn't overthink the idea that calling it a plancha makes no difference to the audience. We all just thought the same thing. Does it have a name? I don't know, but wasn't it crazy? Maybe it'll get a name later.
Who cares? It was great to see.
Exactly. Who cares? That was great. I don't care what it's called. And then, like you said, when he was doing on all that other stuff, like I think his stunner was my favorite because it made it look like the stunner was devastating.
Yes.
It made it look like you knocked you out. I actually think that, I mean, I know I'm just saying the minority. I think The Rock is one of the worst stunners because he makes it look like a cartoon. And you're like, oh, I guess we're all just playing around on a trampoline. Where when Vince took you go, oh my God.
Yeah, it was like he collapsed, legit collapsed, and his eyes were rolled up in the back of his head, and he was convulsing, and he sold it so well. And the pop that got, because I was there live, the pop that got at the Garden was like, holy shit, look what just happened.
Yeah, he killed him. He could have killed him. I don't want to get stunned. And now time someone took a stunner after that, you're just like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was amazing. This is Meltzer, though, talking about Savage. You asked him directly about Savage leaving WWF and if you thought that would ever happen.
Dave.
Yes.
Tell you what, another big week in pro wrestling. We'll be taking calls from the listeners out there. But the big story, Randy Savage leaving the WWF, and that's one guy I never thought would leave.
Well, there's no such thing as never in wrestling, and we learn that every time. It surprised me to a point. I knew that, I'd heard the negotiations were going on. It's the second time there were serious negotiations going on between WCW and Randy Savage. I think that I'm thinking around 91, they had some serious negotiations as well, but they couldn't come to financial terms. And I think it's originally, I think it was a pretty big psychological blow to the WWF because Savage was like the team leader in many ways. He was their most recognizable person to the general public. He did a lot of charity work for them. He was in a lot of their TV commercials, and he was in the Slim Jim commercial as well. So I think it probably stunned a whole lot of people in wrestling that Randy Savage is one of the last guys I think they would have expected to go, especially because a lot of people knew about the heat between Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage. That's not a secret, but at the same time, in wrestling, the dollar overcomes the heat in many cases, and obviously this is one of those.
Well, the heat that did exist between Hogan and Savage, obviously Randy's going to go in there perhaps to begin a program with Hogan.
They may even use that heat to sell tickets.
Yeah.
I expect that they actually will at some point.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what's happening there, and that was certainly a big shocker this week when McMahon went on Monday Night Raw and announced. I guess in recent memory,
actually, maybe the biggest shock was the way that happened.
Yeah, I just in recent memory, I don't ever recall McMahon going on the air and saying, "Well, we haven't been able to come to a contract agreement with anyone."
Never happened. And I mean, if you remember, like an example, right after WrestleMania, when Curt Hennig didn't come to terms?
Yeah.
I mean, they went on TV and buried him. They just tried to say how he was chicken of Lex Luger and. Or when Shawn Michaels, remember when he walked out, and they just, started talking about, Jack Tunney suspended him for refusing to show up and things like that. I mean, they have never done anything like that before, and it was. I thought Vince McMahon came out very well. I mean, maybe he's turned over a new leaf.
Maybe he's turned over a new leaf.
Yeah, it's a new guy, good guy, Vince, man. He's the man of the people.
Yes, he was. Well, it's amazing to listen to this.
Yeah, I think it's cool. And I really like that. I like the idea of Meltzer hearing rumors that they had been talking and completely disregarded it. He goes, yeah, I didn't even report on it because why?
Yeah. Why?
Didn't mean
It
anything.
would never happen. It would never happen. But it did.
I didn't want to look like a fool and say that it was happening. And then you go, but.
And now the poor guy, anything he posts is like
everything.
My goodness, I've never seen so much hatred towards one individual.
I mean, when I disagree with him, I just go, eh. And I don't read his stuff often, so when I see it, it's just kind of like, eh. But some people, you're right, they're so like, oh, we got him again, and you're like,
yeah. It's not, I mean, I couldn't handle that.
Yeah.
And he takes his job seriously, and he always has. And it's just kind of like, in comparison to how he was revered by the wrestling fans back during this era that we're reviewing,
yeah,
he was the voice of authority in and insider pro wrestling.
Yeah,
and now he's just kind of it's like, and I respect him for what he did years ago, but in today's day and age with the internet and how he's attacked and who knows, he might have lost a step or two or whatever his reporting is. And, everybody gets older and, but he's tortured. He's kind of a tortured individual on Twitter. And it's kind of really, it's not, I don't enjoy it. I don't like seeing the guy attacked because I only have good memories of him. I don't have any bad memories of him.
Yeah. I love how connected you guys were during this era.
We were. Amazing. I mean, for about 4 years, it was multiple times a week, always comparing notes. Oh, he always came on the show. And he helped me tremendously. Yeah. And I got him a lot of subscribers on the radio stations that I was broadcast from. So it was a good interaction and it was a friendship, and today it's just a whole different thing. And I really regret that he hasn't ever agreed to come on the show because I'm not here to attack him. I'm here to kind of lift him up.
What if we invite him on the show where we're going to get high?
Oh, that would be fun.
You think we get Meltzer high and we'll all just talk old wrestling?
Yeah. Can imagine.
Should be a good time. Yeah. I got 2 more clips and then we got our special guest, our caller on the line. So I want to play this one because it's a couple.
He's not going to be on camera. He's going to be on the phone.
I mean, this
is a podcast, but will he be on the StreamYard?
Yeah, he'll be on. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I get to see him.
We're not going to patch him in like
like the old days.
The old Donnie style. Yeah. Where we had the
like the phone by the microphone.
Yeah, the only way we can get the Power Twins on at this point. But this is 3 callers back to back, which I thought was really interesting. And then I'll give you a quick rundown. And then the last 2 calls is what I want Roy to talk to us about.
Excellent.
So we're right on time here.
Okay.
And let's start taking some calls. You're on with Dave Meltzer. Let's go right from top to the bottom. Line number 1, Steve from Wantagh. You're first.
Yes, hello there. I would like to know if Bret Hart and the British Bulldog start feuding and the British...
Sean from Floral Park, you're next.
Hello?
Yes.
Hi, how you doing?
Hello there.
I have a couple questions. Hi, Dave, how you doing? Savage left and everything. Was that a live show last Monday? The Raw show?
I think it was. Dave, but that was a live show last Monday, right?
Yeah, Raw was live Monday night, yeah.
Anything else?
From that, right?
Say what?
This Monday will be a tape show from like that day, right?
Yeah.
So will they be hiring anyone except Lawler? They probably push Lawler in there pretty quick Monday, right?
I think they would have to get a new announcer there with Vince. I don't think Lawler can handle it week after week.
Yeah, I know.
Dave? Excuse me? Yes, Dave, we didn't hear you.
No, yeah, I don't know what they're going to do as far as filling the spot. I mean, Lawler was probably like a last-minute thing. I mean, like, the whole thing with Savage came down pretty quick. It wasn't like they had like a week to prepare. And I think that, Lawler's done it with Vince before, and they just figured, of all the guys there, he's the best one. I don't know if they're going to look for a new guy or it'll be Lawler every week from now on.
Yeah, that's certainly the weakest that I've ever seen him as far as announcing goes at this point.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, like, all the good announcers are somewhere else, except for Vince himself.
Yeah, he's carrying the load for sure. 955-1240 is the number to call. Let's go to Staten Island. Ken, you're next.
John,
I just want to start by making a comment. I got yesterday's WWF magazine yesterday, and there's a big interview with Randy Savage in there. It's kind of ironic because he says in the interview that he doesn't care about money. He'll always stick with the WWF. If there was another federation that even came close, he might go there, but he knows that there isn't any other federation, that can compare to the WWF, so he'll always stay there. It's kind of ironic reading the interview now after what just happened.
Yeah, it was a shocker, yeah.
Yeah. I also have a question. I'm a big fan of women's wrestling, and in the magazine, Luna says something that when Alundra Blaze meets Bull Nakano in Japan, like if Bull doesn't win, Luna has this big surprise for Alundra. Do either of you know anything about that?
I expect. That match is taking place Sunday, this coming Sunday.
Yeah, this coming Sunday. Yeah, Luna, Nakano has got to go over Alundra.
I think she should.
Yeah.
I think that she should have at SummerSlam if it had been handled right.
Any truth to the rumor, Dave? I've been hearing something in the last couple of weeks. I don't know if you heard anything about it. Was there an altercation between Alundra and Luna?
Not that I've heard.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
I hadn't heard that.
Okay, that's something. I got a couple of calls this week, and just wanted to check to see if you'd heard anything about that.
You have to ask. You're gonna have to ask Deborah. Get that answer.
I will be doing a Luna specific episode with Medusa next month.
Okay.
You guys check that out, youtube.com/Queen of Carnage, because I want to talk to her about stuff like this. I'm going to play that clip for her.
Good.
I believe this is in reference to the time that Luna attacked Blaze while she was in the shower or changing or something. Like she was naked backstage and getting beat up by Luna. I believe that's what
legit
happened.
Beat up.
Yes. Yeah. It's not like she didn't, hold her own or nothing, but it was one of those like, oh my God, what's happening moments,
I'd be curious to hear what she says.
Yeah. But I thought that was interesting. It was the first time I've heard you say anything like that on there. And, I don't remember hearing other rumors about them fighting backstage. So she's mentioned that before, that had taken place one time. And this was around the time that would have happened. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, again, you guys are putting over Vince as an announcer, and I thought that was great. I like the first guy. If Bret Hart and a British Bulldog.
Yeah, I wanted to move that guy along.
You hung up.
I was like, jeez.
Like, I don't know if there's a punchline to this, but I don't want it.
Right. I was losing my patience.
Yes. Someone asked if Macho's going to come in as babyface or heel. You said babyface. And this is where Dave responds to the guy he didn't take the rumor seriously. You mentioned that ECW shows feel like a rock concert, and then Meltzer says it feels like the Rocky Horror Picture Show of our age, of our generation.
Yeah, actually, with the props and people used to throw stuff in the screen during the Rocky Horror. I mean, it was kind of like, and ECW was kind of that fan involvement was there. They were part of the show.
Yeah, exactly. And you go week after week, even if it's virtually the same thing, it doesn't feel like it's the same thing.
No, always different.
Right. Yeah. Guy calls in asking him where Warrior is, where Crush is, and where Nikolai Volkov is. Everyone every week has. I think it's the same guy.
Those were the ones that irritated me most.
Yeah. Tom calls in saying that he heard Steve Austin was going to bring in Harley Race instead of Sherry because Sherry went to WCW. Where you guys talk about how she's going to be with Harlem Heat now. Someone says that Vince made a huge mistake letting Macho walk, and one of the callers asked if WWF is going to pick up Rude or Perfect since where Randy's gone. Now they could afford him, and it was the same old thing we've heard about Rude and Perfect, same.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings us to the last clip before we bring on our guest for a short little rundown. This is Rob from Medford talking specifically about the AAA show, and then that's followed up immediately by Brian from Long Beach talking a little bit about
Brian Last.
Yeah. Now, it wasn't about AAA, but it was about Japan, and I found that kind of interesting as well. And this is two relatively short calls. So,
we'll go to Rob from Medford. Rob, you're next.
Hi, John. How's it going?
Good.
I have one question for you real quick. I read in a newsletter this past week that NWA tournament this weekend was moved up to the afternoon.
Not true.
Not true. Okay, so it's still going to go head-to-head against ECW?
Yes.
Okay, and the question I have for Dave, I wanted to know, last week at the AAA show, it was awesome, that show, but what happened to the last 45 minutes of the show?
What's the AAA show?
Yeah.
WCW said, "Roll the credits." And what happened was the matches. Everybody was so afraid of the show running long that obviously you could see that the matches were all rushed. And then all of a sudden they were about 40 minutes short. And Chris Cruz went backstage to do an interview with Conan, and all of a sudden the credits rolled. And
that would have been a great interview too if they would have allowed that to air.
Yeah, I think that I think WCW just for whatever reason did not want any live interviews on that show. They didn't want any interviews on that show because there weren't any, and they have their reasons, and everyone can speculate, both good and bad about why that is. But they made the decision, no interviews on these shows, and all the matches were over, and they had to end early. That was probably the biggest down point of the show, the only real significant down point of the show.
Anything else? Thanks for your call. Let's go to Brian from Long Beach. Brian, you're next.
How you doing, guys?
Good.
Dave, let me ask you something, because like many people, I'm a big fan of All Japan Wrestling, and to me it seems like there's not a lack of talent, just there's a lack of new faces over there. The one guy who over the past, I guess it was over a year ago, made an impression was Tracy Smothers, who did a really great job. Do you think there's anybody in America who would actually have a good part in All Japan Wrestling?
Anyway, I didn't hear the whole thing. Anyone in America who could go to All Japan Wrestling? Is that what he said?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of guys. Chris Candido did very well over there. And let me just think. A lot of it. I think there's a lot of wrestlers who could go over there and if they would learn and like adapt, sort of like a Doug Furnace. Doug Furnace, when he first went to All Japan Wrestling, was not a polished worker, but now Doug Furnace is a super wrestler. And I think that there's a lot of guys. If you take a guy, you have to be an athlete though to work over there and make it now. And I think you need to take an athlete with some size. And even if they're not the best worker, if they go over there and they wrestle 20 weeks a year over there and train with those guys, they'll either become a good worker or they'll die. And that's what happens. So, I think that, if you get like a guy in this country, who's an established worker, yeah, he could go over there and adapt to the style if they're not set in their ways and, learn the new style. But I think that if you take, the thing would be to take a young wrestler who's a good worker and train him, in that manner.
Okay. Anything else, Brian?
The training over there would have on guys like Jim Steele.
Just say that again, please.
What kind of impact do you think that the stuff over there in All Japan, like his work, would have on a guy like Jim Steele?
It's there about Thursday night.
Say what, Dave?
Jim Steele starts with All Japan on, actually it's not Thursday night, it's Saturday night.
So he's already in?
This coming Saturday night he'll be starting, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll be real interesting. I don't know if All Japan knows what they've gotten themselves in for.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
him and Danny Spivey is a tag team. I don't know.
Wow. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens, but that's certainly a surprise for a guy like Steele to be included in the All Japan mix. We'll go to our next caller. Thanks for your call, Brian.
Brian last.
Yeah.
29 years ago.
Jim Steele, Jungle Jim?
I don't know.
You don't remember him? I was looking up stuff about him. He ended up being in All Japan from 90, from 94 to 2002. He ended up having
I guess he did well.
Really
going over pretty well over there.
Yeah. And I guess he was in ECW for one show to face 911. So came out of Power Plant. So I don't know. Interesting. But if you don't have any Jim Steele stories.
No.
The AAA show was cut 40 minutes short because they went to an interview with Conan. Would you like our call in?
Yes.
Was it 1240? 991-1240?
It was area code 516-955-1240 is the number to call here at the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, heard exclusively on WGBB.
And we got Roy from California.
Roy from California is joining us,
I believe.
Roy from California.
There he is. How you doing, Roy?
Hey, Papucho, how you doing?
Papucho, there you go. I should have went for that gimmick, that pain you tried to put on me.
Oh, jeez.
Can you imagine me as Papucho, Roy?
Yeah. I mean, you had Bobby Bradley doing, what was it, Super Conejo? Super Rabbit?
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been fun. I mean, I thought he was ribbing me, but it wasn't. It was actual how he wanted me to do it.
Was that Pena or was that a Skoler idea?
It was a Pena idea.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to dress people like Cupid.
Oh, my God. Hey, speaking of Jungle Jim Steele, like I had a podcast after my first Cauliflower Alley in 2017 with like 8 episodes with All Japan guys. Jim Steele was my last. No, yeah, was my last one. We talked for an hour and a half about his time there. So yes, that's Jungle Jim Steele, same guy.
Wow,
he did well.
What's the name of your kitty back there who just jumped off the?
That's Indora, the white one. Okay. I have Sabu, the black one. I have Muñeco. He's somewhere, and then I have Blanche. I got 4 of them at home and 10 at work.
Hey, listen, before we get started here, I just want to let you know and let everybody know who hasn't been familiar with you that you're probably the foremost expert on Lucha Libre in the United States. You are, without a doubt, heads and tails. You've been following Lucha for how many years?
Going back to the late 80s. Probably 88, 89 was the first time I turned it on, because I think I turned the channel and I saw it in Spanish, but like Kamala was in the ring, and I was like, and later Chris Adams and Kevin Von Erich. So I recognized some of the names, but then I started paying attention to guys like Super Astro, Pirata Morgan, El Satanico, Blue Panther, Negro Casas, and 92. I started getting the Observer, and Dave told me there's a guy named Dr. Lucha Steve Sims who writes Lucha Libre Weekly.
Yep.
So I got a hold of Sims. So I had a satellite dish at home, and I lived in Orange County. So Sims told me where I can find UWA, CML on the dish. And then a couple months later, AAA started. So I was getting all that stuff on there. So like I was there for the beginning of all that AAA stuff.
Yeah. What was your first impression the first time you saw AAA?
It was cool because, CMLL has a certain look to it, and it's apples and oranges. Some people are going to like that old school studio thing, but AAA was like McMahon with Saturday Night's Main Event. They had these great entrances, with the ladies coming down with La Parka all dressed in with the size coming down, and Ray, and every escort with Ray was like double his size and stuff. But then you had the Espectro, the Ultra Tumbas that would come down with coffins, and it was just day and night. And I love AAA from the beginning. And I don't know if you're
there you go. There's your tattoo. If you're on YouTube watching on our YouTube channel, you could see the AAA tattoo right there.
Yeah. But I've always been a fan of Lucha. So I was going to all those shows at Los Angeles Sports Arena.
And you got thrown out. Which one did you get thrown out of? The first one or the second one?
Second one, November 12th, 1993.
Yeah, and tell everybody why you got thrown out.
So I missed the first show, and the reason was back then I thought you bought your tickets at the door. I get to the building, paid for parking, by the way, went up there at the ticket counter, and a couple of Mexican people told me.
No más.
Boletos. No más boletos.
Yeah.
So
you must have been devastated.
I learned my lesson that day. That's why you always see me buying my tickets ahead of time, was because of that E3 show.
Yeah, no one expected that walk up.
Who was it that was crying?
Not that massively.
Who was the Skoler guy that was crying because we could have sold another 10,000? Yeah,
Darryl Brooks.
Yeah, yeah. Can you blame him? That could have done business at the Coliseum.
I know that could have done quite. It may have drawn 30,000 or 40,000 at the Coliseum if it was there.
What was the attendance? 18 that night?
18. And turned away
easily 10,
8,000. Turned away 8,000 that we know of. Yeah,
it definitely turned away. And remember, they all paid parking and went up there and told no tickets. There was no signs, no people waving down, "Hey, don't buy tickets. It's sold out." No, whatever. We were still paying.
You wait in line, pay for the parking, and then no.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And then you get into the second show. You get your tickets in advance.
Got my tickets in advance.
At what point to the show did you get thrown out? And tell us.
Way before it began.
All right, so there you go. You couldn't even see the second one. Tell us why.
So before the show began, I had around that time been going to little shows in Bell, Carson, All Nation Center in Los Angeles, just little shows that, and Cal State Los Angeles as well. I was going to those. There's some videos, you heard of it, like FMW was there at Cal State, and they have Onita, Santo, Tarzan Goto. I missed that show, but I started going a couple months later with Casas and Atlantis, Rio, Vampiro. I was there for the first time Vampiro was in America. I always remembered from these shows there'd be these crowd of people around the show that had a sign that said 100% Rudos. So I thought that was the coolest thing because, hey, they're for the bad guys. And so before the AAA show began November 12th, I would hold up a sign that said 100% Rudos. Well, I brought that same sign to the LA Sports Arena, and I'm down by the ring, and I'm holding up the sign. And a friend of mine who's the nephew of the referee Sergio Garcia and Loverboy was telling me, hey, tell the fans, chinga tu madre los pinche mexicanos. So I'm like, arriba la Rudos, chinga tu madre los pinche mexicanos, which means go fuck yourself, Mexicans. I really didn't speak that much Spanish at the time, so I'm just doing it. And
there's a gringo doing it too.
Yeah, and there's a white guy doing it. And I had just come back from church. At the time, I was going to LDS Mormon church. So I was wearing a white suit, no tie, but I had the white slacks on and stuff like that. So when they started throwing the mustard, the ketchup, the piss, all that stuff, it showed because it was all yellow all over me. And the LAPD came over and goes, listen, we love what you're doing, but the owner is saying you got to leave the building. Yeah. The funny thing is Kurt Brown was in the back, and he thought the show, like, he was supposed to be the opener. He was like, wait, what's going on? He thought, like, he missed a cue, and he was supposed to go up for his match, and he opened the curtain. He saw what was going on.
You made a spectacle.
And remember what Carlos said at Cauliflower Alley last year? He's all like, Meltzer said that's the loudest reaction he's ever heard at a show.
Yeah, quite the story. Quite, you created quite a havoc there. But your love for the AAA, the shows that you've attended, and of course, it's 29 years ago that the WCW partnership short-lived with AAA and IWC and Skoler. And so, when Marsh was telling me, what were your conversations leading up to this appearance here? How this?
I got a different perspective of this show than anyone else out there because people, the 99.5% of the people that ordered that pay-per-view, that was their first experience with Lucha Libre, and I get it completely. However, that was like my third, fourth. I was there when the cage with Jake and Conan. I was there with the mask match with Mascarita and Espectrito. I've been there for all those big AAA shows. Come up to this show, Lucha isn't just about flips in the ring, hurricanranas, dives, stuff like that. There's a certain feel to Lucha. What AAA was doing was great with the entrances, with the theme songs. Blue Panther would come out to La Puerta Negra. The whole crowd would be singing his theme song. It was crazy. Same with Máscara Sagrada. And, there's just a feel to it that's not just about what happens in the ring. It's also outside of the ring. Well, the show started going on, and I think Espectrito came out to his original music, and then someone at some point in the back must have whatever, and at that point, it was all generic theme songs for every luchador coming out. I remember I was in the front row, and the guys around me like, hey, what's going on? Why are they not coming out to their normal big entrances and stuff like that? And I explained to them maybe copyright issues because the Americans are they're joining with WCW and they're doing all this stuff. By the time the show was over, there was a grip of people around me, front row people, like, all the Americans have taken this over. We're not coming back. If this is what it's going to be from now on, we're done with this. We'll see it in Mexico on TV where we're going to get the real deal. But fuck this LA Sports Arena stuff.
Yes.
It was a lot of people left pissed off.
So it lost its authenticity.
Yes. And that's why you notice the next show after that, which, whatever it was, maybe it was the July 15th show. It was my 21st birthday.
Triple Mania.
Yeah, it was my 21st birthday. It was Cien Caras, Pero, and Conan, and it was the debut of Paraguayo Jr.
Yes,
so that was I think the attendance was down to 6500.
I actually Skoler. I don't believe Skoler was involved anymore at that point.
I think he did that show, but then from there he actually.
I had that show filmed.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and I sold that tape to AAA last year. Because they said they want to air it because they never had any copies of it. I had all the masters. I had 3 cameras shoot there. So I don't, I was doing some promoting with Penguin 95. So yeah, I mean, that's a little blurry for me at times, but from what you're saying about the pay-per-view with WCW, it just kind of lost the authenticity, and people felt it was getting ruined. And even though Skoler was, played good soldier on this edition of the show that we just reviewed from 30 years ago with optimism, but it kind of fell apart, and there was no return pay-per-view, and that was kind of the end of it.
Yeah, I don't know the attendance of the July 15th show. It was around 8,000. I mean, it was obviously nowhere close to what it was before.
So that's why I'm saying maybe, I think at the time I was there because they wanted it filmed, and I had the wherewithal to film it. I don't believe I promoted it. I don't remember if I did. I did some shows, but it never, I believe, at the LA Sports Arena. But yeah, that was kind of a sad thing to see the lack and the people getting disinterested in it, the authenticity, and that's what probably kept a lot of the crowds away.
Oh, 2 out of 3 falls as well, other than the mask hair match. Everything was 1 fall, and that upset a lot of fans too, because they were used to everything being 2 out of 3 falls.
Yeah.
They were all 2 out of 3 at the time?
Yes. Every match was 2 out of 3 falls. AAA didn't end 2 out of 3 fall matches until 2001.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. So, just a different perspective, because 99% of everything you read, this was my intro to Lucha. I loved it. Ray was great. Jerry Estrada was great. It was great seeing Tito Santana and Too Cold Scorpio and Benoit and all these people. And man, that mask hair match was great. And don't get me wrong, I'll defend it to this day. If you know the backstory leading up to that mask hair match with the Martinete from Blue Panther and Love Machine and everything that went on there, and that pop when Panther hit Machine with that Martinete, and that crowd went insane. That was I really, for the first fall, as easy as it was, and then what going on the second fall, I had my bags packed. I was not ready to be a white guy in the middle of that crowd if Eddie and Art had won.
Yeah.
Eddie and Art, it was funny. In between falls, they were going on the floor up by the ring and doing a swimming motion. It's insinuating that the only way the fans got there was by swimming to the country in the arena. You talk about heel heat. Art and Eddie was great about that.
Great.
But no, other than that match, it was just, it didn't have that authentic AAA feel to it,
So Ron had mentioned in the call earlier that he felt it was like 65% of what AAA was capable of doing, and so they weren't able to do a lot of their elaborate entrances. So, was it kind of a culture shock in general in the idea? Is that why it seems so different? Like, suddenly we have 1 falls, there's no entrances. Like, how much of it felt that different?
Completely different. It didn't even feel like a AAA show at that point. Other than the mask hair match. Yeah.
Wow. Huh. So then also at the same time, I wonder if we can, once we get the crew all together, I wonder if part of it was, hey, maybe our numbers were good here and we sold well. But as far as the concept of coming back, well, if you look at the next show they did and they saw a huge drop off, we may have run off all the customers that we brought in.
I mean, you're screwed on one sense. I don't know what Skoler got out of the pay-per-view numbers. Maybe that equaled 2-3 house shows. I don't know the numbers on.
Or if he ever got a true accounting anyway.
Yeah, because didn't I hear he said that he never got what actually the numbers were.
Right.
But in the sense, by doing that and trying to think that he's going to do it to a broader audience, it screwed up his local audience, who just felt like they were betrayed, and the product was not going to be the same at that point, which sucks in a way, because you were there July. And by the way, were you there for that Star of Death?
What date was that?
December 8th, 1995. That was the one where they started doing the ECW stuff in that star-shaped cage.
No, I was not there for that.
Yeah, Meltzer was there, and he reported 5 stars, and it's a lost video. The people that normally filmed it, Barnett went to Vegas to go meet Howard Stern. Ron Rivera and Hernan couldn't get their handheld cameras in, and AAA didn't send a film crew, so there's literally no way anyone could have recorded that.
Yeah, crazy stuff. But let me, since you're such an expert, and Marsh and I were talking about this before you came on, is it because AAA, now we're here 30 years later, right?
Mm-hmm.
They still haven't had an impact in the United States. They still don't have the television. They still don't have the promoters. I know that Frank Patz got involved, and he got hired last minute to help with that Arizona show that ran. What was that, Marsh, that you were there?
Tempe was last year, yeah.
Yeah,
Kane, it was December 6th. It was Cain Velasquez in the main with Sam Adonis. That match,
yeah. So that was a year ago. Do you think that because of how difficult it is for them to do business, I mean, organizational business here in the United States, find the right partners, because of the way they always operated doing business, and even though Pena's long gone, passed away, it's still, with Dorian there running the show with Pena's sister, they still have not, they've missed the boat here over all these years. What do you think it's just kind of the way they do business, that this is never going to be something that fans in the United States can look forward to on a regular basis, whether it's on TV or running Texas, running California, running Chicago, and the places that they would really do well at if it was seen on TV and promoted with the right people who can actually do business with the organizational structure in Mexico?
The one thing that's really screwing AAA right now, and I say this from the heart, I love their company. I love what they're doing. I love their live shows. If you talk about a promotion, WWE, AEW, Impact, all these different companies, biggest thing is TV or online. Like, where do you watch their product?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't live in Mexico and you don't have Space, which is the name of the channel, you're not going to watch AAA. They don't put it up later on demand on their YouTube channel. I remember 3 years ago, there was a lawsuit with some U.S. investors, and everything AAA going into the United States was like shut down for a while. I don't know the status of that lawsuit, so I don't know if it's that because of that they're prevented from showing something in the United States, or they just haven't figured out what to do. But the frustration with the U.S. market is that they need a forum to show this, and not Lucha Blog, Cubs fan, showing a Twitch feed on Saturday at 3:00 for people to watch. It needs to be something structured. Like, let's go to this YouTube channel. And AAA does a great job on their YouTube channel of the big shows, the Triple Manias, the Verano de Escandalos. They'll replay them on their YouTube channel, each match, the complete show, and stuff like that. But what about weekly TV? What about what's leading up to it? You know nothing about what's going on in AAA. Unless you're dedicated and hardcore. And I follow each show, so I know who the main eventers, the mid-carders are, and stuff like that. And occasionally you see like someone new coming in, but you really don't know who the feuds are or what the big programs are or what they're leaning towards, because they have no weekly outlet. And because if they can't even have a weekly outlet, how are people like just expected to show up at Los Angeles, their biggest market? If anyone's going to get that AAA in the United States, I would assume Los Angeles. I know Dorian met with the promoter of RGR a year ago, and they're looking for buildings in the Los Angeles area to probably run AAA shows at that could hold it. But the typical fan online does not know where to watch it or what's going on. They don't even have the guy does speak English that runs the account, but I really think AAA needs a dedicated English-speaking Twitter account as well.
Yeah,
and they don't even have that.
It's all of that. I mean, it's unfortunate because what could be, if it was brought here, I mean, it really there's a market for it. It was proven years ago, and I'm sure they're still doing fairly healthy business in Mexico.
And what the great thing too is I follow all these independent promotions up here in San Francisco area, Oakland area, that bring AAA wrestlers in, like that RGR promotion I told you about, or Gabe Ramirez with Pro Wrestling Revolution. They work with AAA and they bring the top AAA names in, the Psycho Clowns, the Paganos, and those shows sell out. So it's not like they're not going to, it's not like there's not a fan base there that doesn't want to see that. Majority of everything Gabe Ramirez runs for Pro Wrestling Revolution sells out in San Jose or San Francisco, which is heavily Hispanic. Yeah. So there definitely is a market for that. But as far as a AAA based who knows?
It's weird. It just always feels like they get good enough business. You know what I mean? Like everything's like enough that it's never like it could be more, but it feels like, yeah, but we're okay. So like, I mean, because even the Tempe show, I found out about it through Sam Adonis's Twitter, if I remember right. And if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have had any clue. And we live 2 hours away from it. And then getting there, I had no idea who anyone was theoretically, but they are such tremendous performers that it was so fun. And we saw a few names that we did know. And the way that they perform, it's very old school in that, in 30 seconds, if you're supposed to boo or cheer that guy, and you're going to give it your all because they're making you want to do either one of those things,
I mean, they got some great workers on there, and they got great psychology. Like there's an old thing about 5 seconds of you coming out that curtain, whether or not to boo you or cheer you. I mean, they know what to do when they come out and stuff.
Yeah. Interesting stuff.
And I thought with Sam Adonis going in and being such a big heel and face, I thought that was the time. I was like, here's the time
gimmick.
you have.
What a great gimmick he had, right? My goodness.
He's still doing it too. And usually, and you and I know this, John, when an American goes into a lucha promotion within a few months or whatever, they have the big apuesta, the big hair match or mask match. So they lose it and they're gone from the company. Sam lost his hair at the Triple Mania show in August. He's still main event with that promotion. So they have to believe in him and believe that he, has a future in the company, which is rare. And as good a guy as you and I know Sam is, that's a wonderful thing to see.
Great guy. Great guy.
Yeah. Which I'm sure he would hate for us to call him a great guy with his character he has. But
very respectful individual, that guy. I mean, when I met him for the first time, he has such a love and a sense of history for old school stuff, and he's passionate, obviously, about what he does. And I was very impressed with him when I met him the first time a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, what it was at Cauliflower Alley, and we've become, friends on social media and such. But when I see him, he just has this way of respecting you because of the years that you put in the business. He really has a sense of that history and is a very gracious individual.
Yeah. I think he's even really great to, like, even from the fan side of it. Like, I didn't feel like he respected me because of any of who I was, but I felt like he respected me when we talked just because of just the idea that he appreciated that I appreciated what he was doing. I mean, like, he was grateful for all of that too, Yeah. Very gracious.
Very cool. Well, Roy, I want to thank you. I want you to tell everybody where they can find you on YouTube. I know you have a few channels there. You got a big presence up on YouTube, and whatever your social media handles are, just let us know how fans who listen to this show can find you everywhere.
My Twitter would be the easiest way, at Roy Lucier, my full name, RoyLucier. I do have a blue check mark. I have over 8,000 followers. The thing about my YouTube or my Twitter channel is I have thousands of magazines lying around here. So I share the covers, certain photos in there and stuff, historical things. On top of that, when I mentioned tapes earlier, I was an old tape trader back in 1992. So I amassed a collection of like 8,000 tapes from the time I was tape trading. Now I transferred all those to DVD. Just like with you, AAA asked me for everything that I had of AAA from 92 to 2001 because they didn't save any of that.
I know.
Yeah. So I got everything in my collection to AAA so they can use it for their own thing. YouTube, by the way, I have multiple channels. Now, the reason for this being is I used to have one channel and put everything up there. Big mistake, because one company has an issue with it, copyright strikes you, it all gets taken down. So now all my promotions are across the board. So Roy Lucier All Japan, Roy Lucier WWF, Roy Lucier AAA, Roy Lucier UWA, Roy Lucier CMLL, Roy Lucier Houston, Roy Lucier Independence, Roy Lucier All Japan Women, stuff like that across the board. So if someone gets a wild hair up their ass and decides to copyright my channel, all those other 12 channels are up there. So just search my name on YouTube and you'll see all the channels.
It's a treasure chest of history, is what you have.
Yeah, and every day I'm going through this, when you literally at last count 17,000 discs, and I'm trying to put everything on external hard drives so I don't always have to grab the disc. So I'm going through here daily through the disc, and if I see something historic immediately, like the other day I put a tape in. I flew down to Monterrey, Mexico back in June just to meet somebody who said they had 200 VHS tapes. That was really rare. So I flew down there, grabbed the VHS tapes, mailed a bunch back, and I've been going through them tape by tape and finding all this rare stuff, you know?
Yeah, well, when you have a chance, here's just a handful of negatives I just pulled out of the suitcase that they're filled to the top with.
Remember this,
so
John?
You have an opportunity. Yes, I do. Yeah. So you have an opportunity to help digitize these bad boys, you know, because when I put up a picture on my Instagram, Marsh is salivating. When I put up
every time,
I'm just going to pick an envelope just out of the blue here. I don't even know what's in it. And that's how I put my archives up on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. I just pulled something out of the hat, and this is Georgie Animal Steel biting a turnbuckle. He's getting kicked in the head by Bruno or somebody. I mean, so I have like thousands of these, and I'll never get to it in my lifetime.
Any of that MSG stuff that you got with the 8mm, is Mascaris on any of that?
Yes, I have his. I have mail on 8mm against Buddy Wolf.
Wow.
Yeah, it was the first mask allowed, right?
First mask wrestler allowed.
Jardine had to wrestle without a mask for a long time, and then they finally commissioned, allowed it, and Mascaris was the first one. He wouldn't wrestle there beforehand.
Yeah, John was there. John got to see them. It's insane, man. I just love all the history of it from both sides. And I keep telling John, like, in between these things, we're going to kind of restructure the show. And I was like, let me just move in across the street for like 3 months and digitize everything I can. Like,
well, it'll take you a lifetime. That's why I wish like WWE or Endeavor or whatever would say, you know what, you got so much history there. Let's just buy this.
Yeah.
And you know, with the way technology is today, because if you have an iPhone, you know, when you go into your photos, you see a picture of like Fred Blassie on my photos. It's like with facial recognition today.
Yep.
All you got to do is scan all these bad boys with high tech technology, and then you know where who they are and where they came from. I mean, it's doable.
It's funny. My phone has facial recognition of like all these different people, like Sabu, Dave Meltzer, like Vandal Drum.
Fred Blassie. I mean, facial recognition on my phone, and it says Fred Blassie, Ric Flair, Nancy Sullivan, Buddy Rogers, Lou Albano. I mean, Cleon Jones from the Mets, Bruno Sammartino. I mean, there's hundreds of pictures of Bruno that they facially recognize, and I don't even know how they do it.
Yeah, I wish I knew. But anyone, Twitter, probably the best way to get a hold of me. My inboxes are open. If I'm not working, I'm a truck driver, by the way, work Monday through Friday, 10 to 12 hours a day.
Okay.
So if anyone wants to message me, ask a question about Lucha, Japan, action figures, I have the largest foreign action figure collection in the entire world here. Every AAA figure ever made, mostly every CMLL figure ever made. Mil Mascaris board game up there in the corner. The CMLL. I as long as it's official and not a bootleg that was sold in front of arena, you know, I'm not looking for it. But that's my life. You know, I come home, take care of my cats, my wife, and then come in here for a while and just work on videos and stuff.
We're the historians, my friend. And Marsh is following in our footsteps.
I'm trying to digitize what I can. I mean, I was at a con once, and I saw a bunch of like just random. To me, it felt pretty random, just Lucha figures and toy things. And I'm just like taking pictures and sending them all to Roy. And I was like, is there anything you're missing? Like,
you ever run across anything Lucha? Hit me up. I could tell you, number one, if I have it, but number two, what it is. You know?
Amazing. So. Well, we're going to have to bring you back sometime.
Anytime. I would love to be on. I've obviously known you for a long time. I remember Leno talking about you a long time ago. You and him, I guess Vince brought you to his office trying to get you guys over. What was the deal? Although, remember, we're talking about Mike Leno here. So.
Yeah, well, you know, everything is embellished or kind of mixed up in the
I trust him.
Do you remember Meltzer used to report some trio called the Lying Lano Brothers in the results in the Observer?
Yeah. Well, Mike and I certainly go back. He was a vice president of my Blassie fan club back in 1972. He was a fan club member, and that's how I met him. It was a kind of a pen pal thing. And he started sending me some stories for the Fred Blassie fan club. And I was like, wow, this guy's, he's sending me all this stuff. And I made him vice president of the club. And that's how we got to know each other. He invited me out to LA for the Battle Royal in 1974 at the Olympic Auditorium, that was a dream of mine. The first time I was ever on an airplane. Stayed at Richard Dawson's house with Richard and the kids, Gary and Mark. And then Leno came to visit me in New York one summer. And then the following summer, he decided to come for this whole summer. Is that
summer. Where the getting the mail in the underwear or his?
Yeah, that was all that stuff. And that's when he was thrown out. But back to the story of the Vince thing. It was in 1991. It was during my Weekend of Champions convention. Vince had a lot of negative press because of the steroids and the Zaharian trial. And he invited some wrestling journalists. So it wasn't Mike and I. It was Dave Meltzer. It was Wade Keller. There was about 6 or 8 of us there, and Mike was there. And on that, so it wasn't just he and I.
How did Canvas Cavity was a local public?
I don't know what happened. I don't know how he got invited, how he found out about it. He just showed up or whatever it was, and.
You ever watch those little Tokyo Dome things with WCW and New Japan in 90, 91, 92? Lano's at ringside for all of them. It's like, how did that happen?
Yeah. Well, he and when he visited New York, I had my press access, so I got him press passes, and he shot at the Garden. But the one thing that always puzzled me about Mike was that he always has claimed that he's been a wrestling photographer since 1966, which would have made him about 7 years old.
Do you remember Linda Rufa, I think was her name?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I remember.
So Linda started putting all of her weekly Gong or Pro, whatever one she worked for, up on eBay, like 10 in a lot, and I won a bunch of them from her and stuff like that. And when she got a hold of me and said, thank you for buying these. My name's Linda Rufa, and she put a letter in there and stuff like that. I said, hey, my name's Roy Lucier. I actually live by Mike Lano, who lives by me in Alameda and stuff like that. Oh. She's all, if you tell him anything about this transaction or whatever, I won't send your stuff to you. I don't know what happened there.
Hey, listen, Mike is an interesting cat. He's probably the most unique individual that I've ever met in a lot of ways.
When I first got I was 17 years old, and so I started writing Mike Lano because I saw him in the Observer. And when he'd send these letters, everything would be abbreviated. Like I was hanging out with Moolah and Mae Young, and I'd be hanging out MW, MY, and M or Moolah.
He's the master of the run-on sentence. Yeah.
You ever gotten an email from him and the title?
I have a file folder of about 200. Yeah. Oh yeah,
and when you're new into the business and learning about wrestling, you think this is like kayfabe speaking about some insider stuff that this is what everyone's going to start speaking.
Hey, listen, he's a legend. I mean, literally. I mean, when it comes to oddities in the pro wrestling business, he's. One thing I have to give Mike, he loved the business, had passion for the business, ran Tolis's fan club. And, he had some good qualities about him, but the bizarro nature kind of, tarnishes that. But I don't have any issues with Mike now. Matter of fact, you are the dude that I hadn't talked to Mike in decades, literally.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And the CAC thing.
Yeah.
You brought him over to me. And I never forget the picture. You're like, you guys got to take a picture together, and we did. And I have the picture now where I'm giving him the thumbs up, and he's pointing like he's shooting me with a gun in the photo.
Was that 2019?
That was 2019. Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Oh
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
So anyway, and listen, Roy, I appreciate it very much. It's great to see you. I hope everything is well, and
absolutely.
And I look forward. Are you going to CAC next August?
I already got the time off of work. In fact, my mother, she lives in Lake Havasu. I'm going to be going down and getting her and bringing her up for this.
Yeah, it looks like because this past year I didn't go because it was the weekend of my nephew's birthday. I've never missed it. New York, Met games, all that stuff. But this year it's a week earlier. It's the 23rd, I believe, of August.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go to this one, and I think my nephew's gonna go with me.
20th, 21st, 22nd.
Yeah,
so it's around there.
I'm definitely gonna be there.
Dominic?
Yes, Dominic. You met Dominic, yeah.
Yeah. But no, Ray and I will be talking in the next month or two about the Lucha Award, trying to figure that out, and then Brian and
nice.
the rest of them. So
yeah,
I think it's a great thing that Ray lives in Vegas.
Yes,
he's always,
Hey, he loved it. Obviously, he was honored. He loved it, and even Conan. I mean, when Conan was like, "I never knew this was what it was," so it opened their eyes a little bit to what the organization was all about.
Yeah, not helping all of our brothers out there, and I've been instrumental in helping a few of the luchadors know what Cauliflower Alley is about, and requesting help from them, and they did get it. So I'm, I let them know this organization is not just for American-based wrestlers; it's for anyone worldwide. So
whoever was in the business.
Yeah, exactly. As long as you had 3 years in the business,
Yeah.
All
right, guys. All right, Roy. We'll wrap it up with Marsh, but it was good to see you. Thank you for coming.
Great to see you. I'll see you in August. You gonna be there too, Marsh?
I'm gonna try. The only reason I couldn't go this last year is I couldn't afford it at the time, but we're hoping to make it work this year.
Gotcha.
So yep. Awesome.
Right.
Roy, we'll definitely have you back sometime.
Anytime I could do it, I'll be here.
All right. Thank you very much. Roy Lucier. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, he's wild. I like him so much.
Yeah. Definitely.
And when you go to a wrestling event, he's always in gimmick. He's wearing like
yes, he is.
Yeah.
He almost dresses like Elton John.
Like an Elton John, Jerry Lawler mix. He's got like those those weird affliction shirts?
Yes.
But they were like almost royal and bejeweled, and he's got the big sailor type hat on.
Yes.
I was at the Superstore at WrestleMania, and I'm sitting there waiting in line. I was like, "Oh shit, it's Roy!"
It's Roy.
And then at WrestleCade, I was sitting there walking around. I was like, "Hey, that's like you could just see him from across the room because the whole garb." And I was happy and excited.
He has a presence.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for setting that up, Marsh. That was really cool.
It was fun. I mean, it's gonna be the last one of the year, let's go out with a bang.
Yeah, this could be a 2-parter. It's so long. It's the longest one I think we've ever done.
We could break it up. We'll see. We'll message about it.
Yes, it sounds like a good idea. Give people but we'll discuss it offline.
Yeah.
But that really is it, Marsh. I mean, we've had a great episode. I don't think you have any more clips, right? We're done.
No, that was it. And it was really nice to hear that perspective of like the fans feeling almost slighted by it. No matter how much the show was good, it just wasn't
authentic.
Wasn't authentic or quote as advertised in a sense, right? It's not the AAA we know.
That's right. Well, great. I certainly want to wish you and your fiance and your family Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, because this is the last show of this year. So
yeah, absolutely, and all the listeners and the patrons as well. Happy holidays and
absolutely
whatever you celebrate, as long as you're with the people, right? It's not who you're what you're drinking; it's who you're drinking with.
That is very much the case. And let everybody know where they can find you on all of your platforms.
I'm at Marsh Ref on a good chunk of platforms. On X, it's still Ref Marsh. On youtube.com/Queen of Carnage with Medusa /Wrestling on the Rocks for me, although the audio platform is broken up a little more condensed and easier to digest ways. That's kind of where I'm at.
Hey, you got a new follower on Instagram.
I'm always getting what happened?
Me.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, my fiance messaged that.
Following you, I was like, I saw
my fiance said the same thing.
This is my buddy here. This is and I felt like embarrassed that I had not followed you.
It was actually funny to me because she was posting the clip that I posted to Dewey because I wanted Dewey to see it, and I just don't know if he ever did.
Yeah.
Of him being on there, and she's all like, What's John's thing? And I told her, and she's like, "Oh my god, I feel so terrible. I'm not following him." And I was like, "Follow him now! Like, what's the just do it?" Like, and then she's like, "Follow back."
So much. It's like there's so many out there. But anyway, you have a great holiday. We'll speak very soon, my friend.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Marsh, and everybody out there. What a great show this was. I really enjoyed this one and had a little bit of everything. So this is kind of what we do, and we just speak our minds and we cover the history of the business, and occasionally we bring on somebody like Roy that really kind of energizes the thing that he's very passionate and what an expert he is on Lucha Libre. So that's going to wrap it up. I mean, for our shows of 2023. And I want to really thank everybody for following us, listening to us, whether it's on your regular podcast platforms or on YouTube. We'll return in January to finish up the final 7 original broadcasts of the radio show, Pro Wrestling Spotlight. And then we'll probably embark on a new adventure with you, reliving history and what it was at the time. And Pro Wrestling Spotlight was a groundbreaking show all those years ago. Don't forget, please join our private group at facebook.com/Pro Wrestling Spotlight podcast and radio show. We have 2 other Facebook accounts. We have the public page, which is really just Matt Memories. And then we have a private group there as well. They both have pretty robust subscribers at this point. The Pro Wrestling Spotlight Facebook page, we're about 600 and change there, but the others have thousands in them. The Pro Wrestling Spotlight page is really for people who listen to this podcast and were fans of the radio show. On YouTube, we have the channel there. It's youtube.com/Pro Wrestling Spotlight. Please subscribe to that channel now, and you get notifications, if you'd like, of all the new content that we put up on there. Follow me on Twitter, or X as they call it, at John Arezzi. Instagram is at John Arezzi as well, as is Threads. And don't forget the sister podcast, Matt Memories from Madison Square Garden. We are taping an excellent show on following Monday. So if you followed Matt Memories from Madison Square Garden, you got to be aware that 50 years ago this week, Bruno Sammartino won the Worldwide Wrestling Federation title, his second title reign, and he beat Stan Stasiak December the 10th, 1973. So we're taping a show to review that historic night, and I was there in the second row, and I got a bunch of pictures that are up on my Facebook page right now of Bruno with the belt and Stasiak wearing the belt. And anyway, on that podcast, we're going to bring on Carrie Silken, one of the owners, former owners of Ring of Honor, another really true wrestling historian. So don't forget to check out Matt Memories from Madison Square Garden. It's co-hosted by Tim Portray, written and researched by Richie Garcia. I want to thank our producer and creative director, Marsh. I want to thank our Patreon executive producers, Anthony Pyrus and Joe Holloway, and for each and every one of the patrons for your support, helping with the production costs for this program. Until 2024, when we relive more history with you, this is John Arezzi for the Pro Wrestling Spotlight saying to all of you, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a very Happy New Year.